Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. It is 7 o'clock. I want to welcome everyone that's come to present tonight. We've got quite a list. If you look over your agenda, I don't think there's any additions to the agenda, unless anyone else has anything. Okay. Do I entertain a motion?
I move to approve the agenda.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you, Gina and Jason. Motion by Gina, seconded by Jason to adopt the agenda. All in favor? Opposed? 6-0. Okay, delegations. If we have any. Consent agenda. We have approved minutes, payment of the bills, treasurer's report, clerk's report, donations for Ameritown. All those donations go to Ameritown.
Except the last one.
And then we have a donation for library books. So, if you've had a chance to look over minutes and financials, any questions? Anyone saw?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Jessica, seconded by Bree, to approve the items listed on the consent agenda, consisting of the minutes of the regular meeting of October 10th, 2022, and the special meeting of October 25th, 2022, payment of the bills, the treasurer's report, the clerk's report, the Lincoln County Rec Commission report provided by Mrs. Z, accept donations for the Ameritown field trip. These are for the Ameritown field trip. $280 anonymous donation, $300 from Mighty Mart, $420 from Sarah Deal, $500 from Schoolers, $500 from Citizen State Bank and Trust Company, and then we have a $100 donation to the Mary Alice Garrison Memorial to be used for LES reading materials from Arlene Branson Trust. So that's $100 for reading materials on that last one. Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? 6-0. Thank you to all of them for donating that. I know Ameritown is a great field trip that the kids really enjoyed and look forward to. Okay, that brings us up to our first presentation. We have Tony
Geschwenter.
from Great Bend Co-op, which is
Now it's American Plains Co-op.
American Plains Co-op. He is going to present on installing our own fuel storage tanks for fuel.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it. I brought with me Jason Dinkle. He is our Refined Fuels District Manager. So in case you have any technical questions about fuel, he can pretty much answer anything that I can't. It was brought to our attention that you guys at the school district might be looking at putting in your own fuel tanks, diesel and unleaded, for your activities buses and your activity vehicles, school vehicles. I put together a proposal for you. On the left-hand side, the very first sheet just basically tells you about American Plains Co-op. My title is Certified Energy Specialist. Basically, I work for Great Bend Co-op, which is now American Plains Co-op. And we do quite a bit of business up in this area. So that's one of the reasons that I'm here. We would like to grow even more. And if there's anything we can do to help you with your process of going about purchasing tanks or looking into purchasing fuel as a cost savings, we're here to help you. So basically, what it gets down to is, we have Cenex Products, which is owned by CHS, but you also have a co-op up here that you are using, that you're going to currently, is that correct?
Yes.
You just fuel at the station? Okay. What do you see as being a problem with doing something like that as opposed to fueling your own?
I guess I would say one of the things we were looking for was how to possibly discount, or in today's fuel market, possibly pre-buy. Had we pre-bought some a year ago or something, we could have cheapened up our fuel instead of buying price at the pump.
Right.
And so that was kind of why I had reached out to you, was looking at if we could discount. We probably haven't investigated with CVA what they could offer us, but
Right.
we've talked with you.
I think there's also somewhat of a time factor. I mean, you see all these kids come home on the vans and buses late at night, 10 o'clock at night, and then whatever sponsor is driving that vehicle has to bring the kids here, drop them off, wait for all the parents to show up, and then go back out. And granted, it's not that far to go, but at 10 o'clock at night, it's not the most convenient process
Right.
for them to have to go and refuel, and then come back and park the vehicle, and get in the right vehicle and go home.
Okay. Those are all valid responses. One advantage to that, and I think I kind of mentioned it to Scott, having your own fuel, there again, you guys, like you were saying, John, you can kind of price it out and maybe contract ahead. Nobody knows what the prices of the future's like. I mean, it's so volatile right now, everything is bad. But, you know, if you're able to maybe get a load in and you're gonna save 30 cents over what you're paying at the pump. A lot of times if you're contracting or even just getting it delivered in bulk, you'll save money because of the fact that you're buying in bulk. I also think that there needs to be some control on that, and I think Scott had mentioned something about some kind of metering system or something that would help you to determine who's using that certain product, or who's you know, if they're fueling unleaded or if they're fueling the diesel, bus number 3 or 4 or whatever. That way you can tell the usages. Not only that, if you're having problems with one of the buses, it might be something that you could check into the type of fuel you're using. I mean, that has a lot to do with it. So if you're gonna do it that way, we would set you up to where we would go with a premium fuel, for the simple fact that it would help cut down on those expenses. And it would also help with the fact that how do I want to put it? You're going to control everything that's going on with it, basically. So, I mean, if that's something you guys are interested in, we can definitely help you out. So, if you look at the first page, after this page, after the introduction page, it gives you prices, and this is on a 1,000-gallon double-wall tank. The reason it's a double wall, because according to the fire marshal, state fire marshal, if it's a double wall tank, you don't need a containment area. If you see a lot of the farmers or things like that, they may have, or more construction or commercial, they'll have like a concrete barrier around their tanks. Most likely they're single wall. A lot of them will still do it just for, you know, for sake of if there's a spill or something, that way they don't get the fines. But it's not required if you do a double wall tank. If you do a single wall, then yes, you are required to do a containment. Then you're talking concrete pad, you're talking concrete walls. That's another added expense. So really the difference in the cost of going with a double wall and then compared to a single wall with the concrete, your money ahead, basically. Our fuel manager at the American Plains Co-op there, Rick, when he did the quote, he only did a regular meter. So it's not a meter where you can punch in, like I said, a meter where you can punch in and say, well, it's bus number 3 or whatever. It would just be a regular meter that cranks out however many gallons you're using. If you want to go to something specialized, we can do that, we can get you one. It kind of depends on what you're looking for and how sophisticated you want to get, because anymore you can do all the stuff over your phone. You can get everything running up with your cell phones. I don't know that you want to do that, but there's a possibility. And the other thing with other metering systems, you'd be able to get online and see who, at what time, how much they put in, so on and so forth. It breaks it all down in your computers, so you'd have all that information also. So that's on the single wall. On the second page is the double wall, or excuse me, the 2,000 gallon. That would be for your diesel. The reason we went 1,000 on unleaded and 2,000 on diesel, your unleaded you're using in just the vehicles, you're not going to use as much. The 2,000 gallon, if you get 2,000 gallons of diesel at a certain price, you're going to save money. So in bulk, your money ahead. At the bottom of these, as you see, this is set up and ready to go. This is price delivered, set up, and ready to go at this price. The only thing missing is electrical. You would have to get a licensed electrician to come out and put electricity to the pumps. So, and that's kind of how that works. We also put a leasing option on the bottom here, a 5-year or 6-year lease. And Scott, when I talked to you last time, yes, if you go a leasing option, you would have to get the fuel through us. So that's how that works.
Does repair and maintenance fall on you then as the lease equipment owner?
It's got a 5-year warranty on it. And basically what happens is, yes, you would call us, we would get a hold of whoever the manufacturer of that pump or that metering system, and we would have somebody come out and take care of that. Now, once you own it, then it's on you. If you look on the right-hand side, I did print this off from the Kansas Fire Marshal, and I highlighted the size of the tank, because there was some concern about how far away you had to be from the building or a road or so on and so forth. So if you look at it, it's 15 feet from a public way or the property line, and then 5 feet from any building. So any road or anything like that, and I know Scott had said something about maybe the south side of the school, maybe putting it there. As long as you're far enough away from the school and traffic area, you should be good with that. As long as you can get electricity running there. The next page basically is just pictures of the pump and metering, and then what the tank would look like. The tank, I believe, would be white, not red. I don't know how they send that out for sure. It's up to you. You can paint it blue if you want. And then I put a YouTube address in there, and the reason I did that, it is a metering system that Scott was interested in. And what it does is it hooks up the both tanks. Your driver would go up, punch in his code, and it would say either unleaded or diesel. He punched that code in, 1 or 2. It fills, tells how much, then it gets out, then there's a timer on it. Like it'll only run for 5 minutes for unleaded and maybe 15 minutes for diesel. Once he turns that off, it will automatically shut off. But I put that on there if you guys wanted to take a look at it. That option is going to be about 4,000 additional. So that's why
Or $100 a year lease.
yeah. We could figure it into the lease. You bet. Yeah. Redo the purchase price on it. So, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. And then something we offer also is CHS storage for pennies. That is the leasing option that you guys could look at if you're interested. And that's something Jason could probably explain better.
So
I'm not
I
real
work,
up on that.
I work for CHS, that's why Tony asked me here. So that's one of the issues with storage. I mean, it's gonna pay for itself over time, depending on how much fuel you use. It might take 2 years, it might take 20 years, depends on the demand. So CHS had done that program for storage for pennies, which is basically an in-house lease program. They're gonna we will add a couple cents a gallon to Great Bend Co-op's fuel that's coming here, and that's how it becomes whole. You know, this way you don't have a line item for it, you don't have to worry about taking out of your budget, doing whatever. You can have the storage, start saving the money, and you just pay a couple cents a gallon, is what it amounts to. Depending on the amount of equipment, it's a 5-year lease, so the more dollars we get wrapped up in equipment, obviously the more the rate's gonna be, but that's the whole purpose behind it. The whole storage, Tony did a good job explaining it. Some of the key factors to storing your own fuel, number one, you know, we can't quantify the price today because down the street, wherever you're getting fuel, price changes weekly, his price changes weekly, so that's gonna vary some. Anytime you buy in a greater quantity, you're always gonna get a little better price, whether that's a penny, a nickel, or a dime. Can't really tell you that right now until we actually compare. But in today's world, the fact of having it is worth a lot. Supply's pretty tight in times, and it's not gonna get any better. So having 3,000 gallons of fuel on hand, or having the ability to call Tony and say, fill my tanks, because I think the price of fuel's going up. You know, if you have been doing this a long time, if you look back this year, could have saved $1.50 a gallon. 2020, you could have lost $1.50 a gallon when fuel tanked, you know, with COVID hitting. So it can be pluses or minuses, but for the most part, fuel's always gonna be cheaper, middle part of the year, higher in the summer. So you can base some of that. Contracts, you can lock the price in also, so you can lock in a year's worth of fuel, know what your price is gonna be. It helps in your situation, helps you budget. You know if you know what your usage is, you know what the price is, you know exactly what you're gonna spend in fuel, and you won't get caught on one of these years that fuel went up $2-3 a gallon, and now your vehicle expense is triple what it was last year that you weren't prepared for. So, I don't want to take up a lot of your time,
So, what you're saying, just so we're clear on this, this paper, this would be a CHS.
it would be an agreement with Great Bend Co-op.
Right.
Yeah, we just back them, is what we're
Is
doing.
it a little separate program from
Same
the
thing.
release at the bottom
No.
here? Or it's
That's what Rick bases it off of.
And Rick just based those dollars on
Yeah.
that, I don't know what it says, a 5-year lease,
Yeah.
it's $2,100. That's just estimating your fuel consumption.
Consumption.
So if your fuel usage is a little more, or a little less, that's gonna vary a little bit. But that whole lease program is backed by CHS through Great Bend Co-op, through to you guys. And any piece of equipment you put on those tanks can be lumped into this lease. So if you wanted to go with a $20,000 computerized metering system, which is an option, that can be tied into this lease also. What I was telling Tony in the vehicle, technology has changed so much in the last few years, especially credit card theft at the pumps. I don't know if you guys have been a part of that, it's in the news a lot. So the industry is requiring different changes at the pumps to take credit cards. So a lot of that equipment's obsolete, but it would fit perfect in a situation like this, because you don't need credit cards. You just need a imprinted card that you guys can make yourself for bus whatever, or driver specific. So some of that equipment might be able to be picked up for little, no dollars, you know. It's not new and it's not fancy, but it gets the job done, and it gives you guys the records you need for each transaction or each bus. So it's a little, I mean, can't give you a price on that until we find it, you know. But it's out there and it's for sale. It's just first come, first served kind of thing. So.
Could you give us any estimate? So board members, I made this chart for you. This is our last 12 months of fuel consumption. So if you look at September of 21, the very first $3,900 to September of 22, we jumped to $7,200 in fuel expense. So that's why these conversations are taking place. So we spent, if my math is right, just hand picking at this thing, $44,339 in fuel last year.
Right.
Bulk pricing, is there any ballpark that could be 5% less? Because I need to figure out if the savings is truly gonna pay for the lease plus move us ahead. Because I can't budget a $4,000 difference in a year in fuel consumption.
So the other piece, you know, I'll be honest with you, I sat on the school board for the last 8 years. I'm no longer on it. I got 3 evenings now. But anyway, the other piece that you can look at is there is a value to this equipment, even if 4 years down the road you say, I'm not interested, it's not paying for itself, value will still keep going up and up. Those tanks are gonna be worth more 5 years from now than what they are today, because they're hard to get, especially fuel tanks, they don't go bad. So there's not a lot
Matter
of,
the lease terms, we own the equipment at the end of the.
5 years,
It's
they're
lease
yours.
purchase.
We walk away from it and it's all yours, and at that point, I mean, obviously, Tony wants to continue to sell you fuel, but at 5 years' time, you can buy fuel from anybody you want to, because you own that tank. So that's something I try to tell people, there's not a big inherent risk, because there's always value in that equipment, it's not disposable equipment, per se. So the best case scenario, if you'd have contracted fuel in 2020, you could have locked in 2 years' worth for about $1.50 a gallon. You know, that would have paid for tanks in 1 year. Now, that's a what if, who would have known it could have happened, but it was there, you know, we were, at that time, I worked at a cooperative, we were selling diesel for 99 cents, you know, kind of a one-off deal because of COVID, but take advantage of those situations, those will happen again, you know, whether it's an illness or some other thing in the country is gonna cause fuel prices to fluctuate like that, so.
And the other thing too, if you don't wanna go new, we could search for some used tanks for you. They're out there, it's hard to find, but we'll look for you if you want us to. If this isn't a route that you feel is, you know, if you think this is too much money to spend, you're still gonna have to put the equipment on it, so that's not gonna change, but the tanks themselves, you know, that's something that we could also do for
The
you.
only thing I will add, the lease part is only new equipment. If they find you some used tank, it's gonna have to be a purchase outright,
Yeah.
or maybe a deal you can work out with Tony, but CHS is out of the picture as far as a lease on used equipment, so.
I might ask you, don't mind, Scott, does DS have districts that have their own storage and their own tanks?
We do, most of them are bulk fuel tanks on site. We have a handful that are, where we use card system. World Fuel is one of our suppliers for that. where
Like
they
we
can
do
go-
here.
Yep,
See, I think the only savings we get out here is we just don't pay tax. That's it.
You
We're
don't
not
pay
getting a cut on, fuel.
so, yeah, where we do that, we get a rebate from our fuel supplier for using their cards.
You know, and then we'd have the same thing, Tony, they'd figure all the tax for you. You know, if the bus doesn't have a tag on it, there's no tax. You can run road or off-road diesel, so on and so forth, and he can assist you with that just like you are. Probably
Can you
don't.
say that again?
If a bus does not have a tag on it,
tagged, you can run red
you can
diesel.
run red fuel in that. If it doesn't have a tag
I
on it.
hadn't heard that.
Yeah. And I can give him the
This is Scott
documentation for
Bruegge
it.
with DS Bus Lines. He's
Oh,
our-
well,
He's our bus
So-
contractor.
the reason I say that is I worked for a co-op in northwest Kansas last 22 years as their energy manager and just shifted roles. But the way the taxes are read, if the vehicle does not have a tag, you don't have to run highway diesel, because it's technically not on the highway. School buses and even some county vehicles kind of lump into that because they don't have to run a tag, because for the most part they have a county destination. Now I will say your activities bus,
Yeah.
your big one, that'll be tagged most of the time. And I don't know what you have for buses, I apologize.
Yeah, as a contractor, we have to tag them, but as a school district, I don't think in Kansas you have to license
Yeah.
a school bus.
Regardless of which, you can run clear diesel and apply to get the tax back. So if you're not sure, that's a safe way to do it. It just takes a little more paperwork to submit the mileage and the gallons, but at either rate, the district does not have to pay tax on a school bus. Yeah.
Because I talked to a guy and, he said their district runs all red
Yep.
in their buses, but they own their own buses, so that would make.
Could be some
sense there
difference.
also.
So that scenario, Tony can work with you if you guys put something together on finding you the right paperwork and avenue to get the tax back as a refund. I mean, that's 50 cents a gallon right now, just in
Well, and
tax.
our struggle is if we would put in a 2,000 gallon tank, we're about gonna have to fill that with one color or the other, cause we're
Yeah.
not gonna switch back and forth or whatever,
Right.
so
Yeah, exactly.
it's simple to have it.
The other point that Tony forgot to mention that we talked about, and I don't want to take up a lot of your time, it's cold outside. When you get fuel down here, you're trusting that what they're telling you as far as where that fuel will gel or where the cloud point is on that, you're trusting what they tell you. You own your own fuel, you can order whatever blend you want for the winter months. You know, these guys will give you recommendations, and they'll also show you a chart on where this fuel is good to. So, like I said, I live in Waukegan, had a good relationship with the bus garage there, bus barn, we called it. And I would just tell him, I'd say this fuel's good to 7 below zero. The forecast was for 10 below, they might have school, they might not. That was his call, but he at least knew exactly where it was good to. Or he could add some more to it, what have you, you know. When you're going up here to the local fueling site, no offense, you're trusting that they even know where the fuel's good to, and you just don't always get clarity. And I'm not saying anything negative, a lot of times the person that you talk to might not be the one that made the decision when they put the fuel in the tank, and that communication barrier there.
The good thing is they do know that that's where we fuel our buses, and we've had good luck.
Good. Yeah.
in there, so that's-
Exactly, but having your own, you know what you got, there's no question there, exactly.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, and that's good, not all towns are that way, so that's good. So,
In your experience, any of you, have you seen whether, is a 10,000 gallon tank, somebody said that if we could only get it, but if we could get a semi-load, we would get even cheaper, and that's about the only way we would actually save money on the deal, but I don't
So
know.
10,000, if you got semi-load quantities, I could promise you could pencil out the savings a lot faster, because that fuel comes directly from in your proximity, the refinery in McPherson, they deliver it up here to you, and that is a spot price, whatever their cost is that minute, because it changes, you know, hourly, whatever that price is, they put their few cents margin on it, and that's what you pay. Off the truck, you're still working off of their average of what they've got, what they got yesterday, today, tomorrow, so it's a little harder to figure that. The downside to a transport load, your volumes need, a load 7,500 gallons, and the last thing you want is a load of fuel that's gonna sit there for 10 months before you get it used up.
Yes, and that's the other thought.
That's your
What we've
challenge.
got is how fast we go through.
Yeah,
So-
especially when you're running into winter months, cold, you know, you can't just put winter fuel in it and then all of a sudden switch to summer or vice versa,
Yes, yes.
so,
I was just curious on
No,
your
no.
opinion on that.
by all means. I've done it enough, you'll save money with your own storage, it's just, it's hard to quantify exactly how much at what time, because, you know, you don't know what the price is gonna be 30 days from now, it's,
So then, Tony, are you our consultant? Do you call and say, hey, this is the time to get it filled? If you're half empty, fill it up.
Yep.
Because we're in a low price point. I don't have time to watch that market, you know?
Right. Yeah, we get market updates every day. Sometimes it changes at noon. You know, like he said, it's very volatile right now. I've got 2 customers right now that are wanting to contract, but I have to send them updates about every 2 days, 3 days during the week. So I can get you on the list, and I can let you know, hey, this is what it's gonna be. Now, like he said, on the hour though, it could change. So that's where you gotta say, well, I wanna lock it in at this. You know, if we think the market's going down, all we can do is give you our opinion, because we don't know, you know, that it's going to. I can tell you, yeah, it's going down, then all of a sudden it goes up, then it's like, yeah. But there's a few guys that we have contracted, got in pretty decent pricing this year. But next day it went up 17 cents in. So it's just really tough to figure that out. It's a crapshoot when it comes to that. So, but paying what you're paying for that as to maybe what you're paying up there, you're still gonna save some money.
What's your, and I know this, but for everyone else, your turnaround on fuel, if we call, we're down to 100 gallon in the tank and we call you?
Okay, so if you go with these size tanks like you're talking about, if you call us, if you go with premium diesel, decide to use that instead of just the number 2 or number 1, which would be like your Ruby products. I know you know that, the rest of them, some of them may, but anyway, the premium diesel comes out of Russell. So you call us and we're like, okay, we got a guy there, we can get it to you that day, or the next day, you know, if he's not in the area or something like that. If you're gonna do the number 1 or number 2 diesel, then it'll come out of Great Bend. So it could actually come out the same day, it just depends on our drivers, how busy they are. Winter time, not as much. Towards spring and fall, yeah. And fall kind of falls off, but spring more so. They get really busy, so. But usually within a day or 2, you're gonna have it. And the other thing you could look at if you wanted to, and it's not on here, putting monitors on there. What a monitor will do is it will ping you, it pings that monitor every night and lets you know where the fuel's at. So say it's at 50%, okay, next day it may drop to 40%. When it gets to a certain point, when it's at like 20%, it'll send a warning out. It either goes Scott to his phone or his computer, or I don't know if you have a maintenance guy or a head bus guy or whatever, but if you have, it's kind of what I thought. He was out there shoveling snow too, but it could ping him and then it could say, hey, you're at 20%. You know, we also get that information. Rick or I would probably call him and say, do you want us to bring you a load up? And that's how that works. Yeah, but that would be an additional cost, or not that much. I think they're like $300, something like that for that, but that would be an additional cost on here. You can put it in the lease, run it that way, so.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was gonna say, I just had a text from a friend asking, how do you know how full the tank is? I wouldn't have asked
Have
such
to
a
go out and
question.
stick it,
so
yeah.
I'm sure there was.
But, yeah.
And both of these will have a gauge on them, manual gauge, but you still gotta have someone walk up there and look at it, you know. The monitor, that's just kind of the future.
So, for the board's information, just something to think about, you know, I'm always looking for ways to save money. And I'm looking for ways to save money that even the investment, I need to know. And that's what makes me nervous about the volatility of fuel, is I really can't calculate an ROI on this thing because it could vary. But I truly believe the more bulk you buy, the better price you get. It's very hard to go wrong when you always pay less than almost anywhere else where you would have to purchase a product. But Nikki and I have talked a lot about it. The south side, is that where we want? We don't know what the future might hold. There used to be on the north side, there used to be a telephone pole with a light. My understanding is the buses used to park on the north side. There is still electrical conduit and electrical box underground in the middle of that parking lot. It could be extended. We have several places we could put them. I noticed the fire marshal said from a nearby important building or something like that. So, you know, we've had a lot of fun with the fire marshal at the tech building. It'd be interesting to know what he considers as an important building and what's not important.
Right.
But the beauty behind the double wall tanks, other than electrical, you can pick them up, move them anytime you want to. So if you have an addition down the road or need that lot, yeah, you're out the electrical that you ran there, but you could pick them up with a front end loader and move them 50 foot.
And if that's the case, we already have a pole and electrical outlets on that end for buses to plug into. So we already have power at that location, so it's probably something you need to think about. Maybe December we revisit. Maybe by then there'll be more questions and we can give answers. What do you think?
I think so. Anybody else have any questions for these guys while they're here?
One thing you could do, and I'm putting Tony on the spot here, you could do a little price comparison from day to day. If you want to just drive uptown and see what you're paying for fuel, give Tony a call and say, what would it cost to deliver it today? That might give you some comparison to just see, you know, I don't know what that would be. Might be a penny, nickel, or dime. I don't know, but that's something for peace of mind to help you do a little ROI on it. That's an option, so.
And if you wanted transport price, I mean, there you're talking 10,000 gallon tank or 10,000 gallons, or more, but, I can get you a transport price, I'll let you know that also. But, yeah, the other thing with the fire marshal, do you have a local fire marshal?
Just a state, I'm sure.
Just a state. Yeah.
Okay.
We've just been working on a building and trying to get it back to
Okay. I didn't know if you had like a fire chief. Sometimes they wanna get involved in some of that, or he may say, no, whatever the state fire marshal says is good, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but some towns, like, I'm dealing with Great Bend with their USD, they're putting in a new bus barn. And, so they have their own fire marshal there that, yeah, so things can get kinda touchy, so I just wanna make sure. Anything else?
And just for the board, that if you just put it at $4 a gallon kind of average, it's probably been more than that for the most part, but $44,000, we're looking at about 10,000 gallons probably of fuel a year. So a tanker,
Is that both fuels?
that is unleaded and diesel because we don't break it out. But our gasoline usage is pretty stinking minimal, really. When you got vans and stuff that get 30 plus miles a gallon.
Yeah.
You know, it's those big yellow buses that
Yeah.
run up the bill.
Exactly.
Once we go electric.
I don't want to use the fuel to run the generator. That's how it's going.
Thank you very much.
Guys, thank you.
Thank you.
You guys
Thanks
have
for
a
your
good
time.
evening.
If it snowed anymore, the scoop's right by the door.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Any other discussion on that while it's fresh? Okay. Those guys for coming. All right. Well, you're up.
So you guys wanna talk about electric buses, right?
We saw some at the convention this week.
Yeah, so I was at a national trade show last week, out of state, but the two biggest conversation topics is driver shortage, which I think everyone knows about, and then electric buses. A lot of buzz around that. You know, we have a sister company, Midwest Bus Sales. They're the Thomas bus dealer for the Midwest area, and they're getting a lot of interest out there. I was in Beloit earlier today. I think Wakanda got a grant for some electric buses, so we'll see what happens there. So it's something on the radar. Nothing I'm jumping up and down excited about at $350,000 a bus. Plus the infrastructure costs that go along with that, and then of course the electricity costs that go along with charging the buses. So a lot of information still to be had out there in the industry. I think the manufacturers are pushing it, but the energy companies, the suppliers, the battery companies, they have to catch up to what all's out there and what all can be done and at what cost of that. At some point in time, the grants and the money to afford an electric bus are going to go away, and then what do you do, right? So those are kind of the two biggest things that we talked about at our conference. The driver shortage, we've seen it pretty much every location this year. In times where we've been okay in our smaller rural areas, this year we got hit. A lot of our older retiree type of drivers, fully retired, decided not to deal with the headache of the school buses or the kids. And basically told us they weren't coming back, or they didn't want to have to keep their CDL up. So we've been pressing to try to get drivers in the door. We've recently hired a gentleman. He came to the Kansas City office, went through our training program, and he is, as of I think Friday, driving full-time now. Paul, I don't know if you guys have met Paul. And then Keith, the lead driver we have, kind of overseeing Lincoln and Beloit. He's got a line on someone, hopefully around the first of the year, that's fully licensed already. So we're hoping that person comes through, still has the interest, still can go through all the background checks and the medical screening to come on board. So that'll place us full with the 4 route drivers. And Keith's done a great job in the Beloit area, keeping subs. That's how we've been kind of rotating drivers down here, keeping the routes running. Keith and his guys up there have done a wonderful job, kind of playing tag and helping out when and where needed. It's not ideal. We want every location to be fully staffed and drive the routes on their own. That way they get to know the kids, they know the area. It just makes for a safer driver. But in these times, we've had to do a lot of sub-driving and a lot of people driving and helping out in areas where they don't typically drive from. I told Scott that, you know, kind of the update, I don't want it to be all doom and gloom, but it seems like it's all doom and gloom with driver shortages. You know, we're having to do some extraordinary things based off of trying to get people in the door. Recruitment, it's not as easy as finding someone at the cafe or someone at the Dollar General or Walmart to be able to come to work. There's not a lot of people just breaking down the door to look to drive a school bus. So we've had to do some extraordinary things like hire-on bonuses, referral bonuses, and even those haven't produced the results that we had hoped. We're looking at some point in time, looking at compensation. What does that look like? Are we competitive in the market with the surrounding area, with the surrounding type of work that we do that require a CDL? So we need to make sure we're compensating those drivers so they stay, one, and two, we can attract drivers to come in and come to work for the school. The cost of buses, I know we just said electric bus is $350,000, but a diesel bus, 2 years ago, if you'd have bought a diesel bus, it'd been about $85,000. Right now, same bus, no added features, same bus is $120,000. So we've seen a huge increase in the supply chain. Part of that's...
Are they even available?
And then that's the other part. If you ordered a bus today, it would be ready about 12, 13 months from now. Most of the manufacturers pre-COVID were on a 3 to 4 month build cycle. So if you ordered it 3 to 4 months later, we'd be able to deliver it. Now we're 12 to 13 months out, which has been fortunate from our side having our sister company, Midwest Bus Sales, because they keep an inventory with stock. So if we've added a route or if we've had a bus go down, we have inventory to put in to play, which a lot of companies can't say that. So we've kind of planned for the rainy day. Our Midwest Bus Sales company, they typically order about 170 stock units every year. They ordered about 400 this year, knowing the supply chain piece was just going to be a delay. Again, we talked about with the fuel guys, diesel's at an all-time high, $5+ a gallon at some point. So trying to make sure that the routes are as efficient as possible, but also that we have the fuel economy where it needs to be. Most buses are getting about 7 miles per gallon. That's something that can vary based on roads, based on driver, based on just the travel and speed of the bus, and of course sometimes even idling time. I think that's kind of the gist of what I kind of wanted to talk about from my side. Wanted to see what questions the board had from my end. Again, we're making some progress on getting the drivers hired. Nancy retired as lead driver at the beginning of the school year and gave us basically 30 days until she said that she would no longer be a route driver. So that kind of put us in a quick spin to find somebody. But again, Keith and the guys from Beloit have been helping out, and David and Don have been great up here as well, keeping things covered.
I have a question.
Yep.
What do you see other districts doing to handle their fuel and handle their purchasing of fuel?
Yeah, a lot of it's, as we talked, bulk. If you have a tank, one that allows you to control the timing of the purchases, but two, you're not reliant on the pump price. Each time that the bus is ready to go fuel, you're able to store the fuel. I'm not a fuel guy, so I don't know if having the premium diesel would be advantageous more than just going from number 1 to number 2 in the wintertime, the blend. I don't know the cost difference of that either, but that's something to look at, consider. But yeah, most school districts have bulk tanks where they get at least 5,000 to 7,000 on a delivery.
Do the drivers from, the Beloit drivers, do they bring the buses from Beloit, or do they just drive a vehicle here and then the bus is just driven once they get here?
So the Beloit drivers have been using the Lincoln bus to come back and forth. That's been part of the easiest way to get them to come and do the work on a daily basis. not knowing, we have a few farmers up there as well, not knowing who's available what certain day. Just been easiest for them to get in the bus and start the route, whichever area that they go, versus coming here and then figuring out where to go from that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that was a little curiosity with the price of fuel,
Yeah, it
whether
seems-
there was some way to, whether that would be on whether that's a perk on your end, or whether that's, because we have a driver that, David drives all the way back home with his bus, and then he drives back to town to get kids, and whether it'd be simpler to have a vehicle, or whether we could
Yeah.
offer a vehicle, or how that could be.
Yeah, that's a catch-22. A lot of drivers, it's a perk to let them take the bus home from that side, or they wouldn't probably come and drive for $35 a run and use their own fuel to come up and go back. We try to hire based on where the routes go and whatnot, but sometimes that's not always the easiest thing to do as well. If there are centralized where we park at the school and the driver comes in and goes from that works out best. But where sometimes the driver lives and the route goes, a lot of times they park out and, yep.
I don't want to sound like a total cheapskate, but I really am. So if somebody's driving a bus from Beloit down here in those hills, they're not getting 7 miles a gallon. But that's a 60-mile round trip. At 7 miles a gallon, that's 8.2 gallons of diesel. So it's costing me $40 for a bus to come from Beloit down to here to start a route that I paid for to start here. So $40 a day, not a big deal, but you take 170 days if it happened every single day, and those are, 10 dimes make a dollar. I'm looking for every dime.
Yeah.
So that's just a,
Yeah.
I feel like we're paying fuel for us, how do I say this politely?
Yeah, no,
I'm paying fuel for a staffing problem that's not mine to solve. Does that make sense?
no, I
In a very
understand.
polite, nice way, 'cause
Yeah.
you know I like you, it's just,
Yeah.
I don't wanna be confrontative.
Yep. No, I understand. Keith does a great job trying to find, the most economical way to handle things. From our side, we would love to be able to hire everybody within the school district and get people hired and get people through the process and not have to go the direction we went. Sometimes that just takes longer. Sometimes that's an area where, from Keith's side or Tanya's side before, probably should have gave you a heads up of what was happening prior to that. But that's,
I just know my fuel last year in September, this year is $3,370, $17 higher.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of that is price, I don't know how much of that is extra driving, but that, that's $36,000 more dollars if it sustains that gap through the year that's going to put my budget in kind of a pinch.
Yep.
Well, that's miles on your buses and your tires and
Yeah,
everything. too,
exactly.
and so I don't know.
Yeah.
If there's some way we can work together to try and figure out if there's a cheap gas car that they could drive, and if we get bulk fuel, I'd rather pay gas
Yep.
and have them drive a car that gets 30 miles to the gallon than.
I have a sweet Impala.
Yeah, than drive a bus that,
That's how I see it is.
yeah,
A bus is costing us 3 to 4 times more what any other kind of vehicle would. Plus wear and tear. I mean, that wear and tear is on their side, but, 7 versus 21 to 28,
there's some savings there, and just how we work that together, because I understand it's a perk for them not to have to put miles on their own vehicle or miles on their own
you
gas.
guys could pay them mileage cheaper than you could run your buses probably by the time you figure depreciation.
yeah. Again, I haven't put pen to math and pen to paper and do the math, but that's something from Keith's end. I can sit down and see what other options that he sees. We've looked at even sometimes there's been 2 drivers going back and forth, but it's because one route starts at a different time, and that driver doesn't want to come here and have to sit and wait and go through that piece until that route starts. So there's some convenience piece to bear with that. You know, drivers can be pretty cantankerous, so we try to appease as much as we possibly can, and sometimes we over appease, and obviously there's some dollars that impact. So that's something we can look and see if there's some better options.
You know, like that guy said, with 99-cent fuel, it would make a lot of difference.
Yeah, exactly.
$5.90.
And that's the piece, you know,
Yes.
in previous times, this is kind of what we've always done. It's never been a problem because you're paying less than $2 a gallon. But now that it's $5 a gallon, it's more noticeable.
Yes.
Yep.
And I think my goal, Scott, is to just continue this relationship and make sure, you know, the contract that you and I renewed last year will be over in May of '24.
Yep.
And when we look at bulk tanks and we look at things like that, and, you know, if DS is struggling to maintain, well, I need to have some level of confidence when I come to my board that DS won't say, you know what, we don't make enough money for the headaches that we have to do, and then we get, I don't wanna spend $23,000 on tanks, and in 18 months, DS drops a contract and has no interest in renewal. And we kinda talked about that on the phone, but if you could talk to that to the
Yeah,
board.
absolutely. No, this is an area we want to continue to stay in and grow in. Beloit's been a great customer. You guys have been a great customer. This past year, we've combined our leadership with Keith to oversee both locations. I think Keith does an outstanding job. You know, there's some worry areas as far as could he handle both locations, but I think he's been talking with Scott regularly, and Keith's a personable enough guy. If he needs to come down and visit with somebody, he will. He's great with the drivers, you know, and not afraid to talk to a parent or two if need be. But you know, we're actually looking to grow. You know, part of our demands is to find other locations where we can grow in. The 6 routes in Beloit, the 4 routes here, combined 10. That's our smallest 2 locations that we operate. But at the same time, it's typically the least headache locations we have to deal with when it comes to issues and kids and drivers and parents, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we're actually turning in a bid here in this next 30 days in Junction City, so it wouldn't be too far. Hopefully we'll get some interest there. Salina's been on our radar to have something close where we could have even more support personnel, whether that's maintenance, safety, operation people. So yeah, we're looking to stay. You know, there's areas where you guys always have to look at that cost. We do the same. You know, sometimes we have to get creative. Sometimes there's tough choices to have to look at. Sometimes that's something that we can look at on our side. Sometimes you know, we share that situation and partner with you guys to figure out what that looks like, because there always will be an impact on the service, you know, whether that's a reduction in a route or a certain mile radius that you only pick up kids from, and obviously that impacts your all's phones ringing.
Well, you can see, we're looking to invest in something to save money on fuel, but it won't do me any good to have a couple thousand gallons of diesel if nothing runs on diesel around here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hearing certain states are now putting, after a certain year, that they'll no longer let you buy diesel buses. Kansas is not one of them, but states like Colorado, there's some legislation out there, you know, looking at by 2030, 2035, a diesel bus is not even an option to get.
When we talked with the Wakanda people, and some of the, on perfect conditions, they could get 100 miles on a charge, but they were thinking 70 miles on a route bus. Well, 70 miles on some of our routes out here would pretty well deplete what you got. Some of the feasibilities of doing away with diesel would.
Yeah, there's a lot more research to be had, and you know, talk to these Wakanda people a year or two from now. They're going to tell you what not to do.
And they're going to have to go, they think May of next year they might get their buses.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's a timeline that I think they have to have the buses in use by May 2024 to get that grant. And you know, the infrastructure, getting supply chain, getting all that up and going. And by the time they get those buses, that technology will be obsolete.
Yeah,
You know, they're gonna be running on fast charge stations by then.
yeah.
Instead of charging the bus 3 to 4 hours, they'll charge in 30 minutes, which is where you wanna be if you're gonna go to an electric vehicle. But also, you wanna get more than 100 miles on your range.
Yes. Any other questions?
Thanks for taking the time and
Yeah.
that drive to get here, Scott, appreciate
Yeah,
it.
good to see you guys.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks for transporting our kids safely too.
Yep, appreciate the partnership. Thank you.
Next, we have another presentation.
I'm sorry, you guys gonna listen to me talking now? There's lots of talking tonight.
We have Krista Biggs, she's been researching an early learning center or daycare setup for us.
Yeah, I'm gonna start this if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I won't.
So I went to a breakout session at the KASB conference, intentional because the Central Plains superintendent and the Perry-LeCompton superintendent have implemented early learning centers, and they had done all of the research, which saved me a tremendous amount of time. So before Krista gets started, I just want to share some things with you. These are just facts. Wait a minute, this is the wrong dang slide. There we go. I do have to point out something very funny, so I had to edit this slide. So we have two superintendents, one with a doctorate, and they present this slide, and it said that 44% of Kansas live in a child care desert. So I had to take an S out of there. I don't know why it just catches my eye, and I was just sitting there going, huh? So this is what is really interesting, and this is statewide. 21 counties, no openings for infants in 21, and in the whole state, there's a need for over 85,000 daycare slots. I have had such an emotional roller coaster with this project, with this idea, and I was really glad that I went to this. So in just northwest Kansas, there's our stats, 40 centers, 449, and even just in northwest, out of that, 85,000 need. We have 4,296 needed positions for kids, just in what they're calling northwest Kansas. So I thought this stuff was fun, fascinating. One of the things they did talk about was home child care providers. And I can't vouch for where they got the data, but this is what they presented. I mean, I can't spell, so I don't know where they got their data. But what they're talking about here is a self-employed, at-home, or in a building child care provider. And some of that's kind of interesting. It is not at 19.7% in poverty, it is not a money-making endeavor for your 50 hours a week. And there's, as most people who are self-employed know, it's not ripe with benefits for you. So some of the conversation was there might be providers who would like to be under the umbrella of capers and insurance and things like that. So I wanted to share that just because it was so fresh on my mind from that conference.
And after talking to some of our local providers, I would say that that's accurate. So
Are you up? No, not yet.
I didn't want to like kick you off. I didn't know how that worked.
Well, there you go.
Okay. So I gave you guys all just the slides as well, just so you could see the data and make notes, and if you wanted to reflect back on it, just so you have that information. And my tech savviness, I couldn't get my presenter notes to come up and not show you guys, so I'm going to be flipping through those slides as well while I'm presenting. So this was the fun part of my research, is I got to come up with a little name. So I came up with Little Leopard Learners. I thought that was fun, and it implemented what we were trying to do. I researched both early learning centers and group daycare homes. And what I found through that research is that the daycare homes would be a more logical system for us, because in an early learning center you have to break them out by age group, and so we have to have like an infant room, and you'd have to staff that infant room, and then you'd have to have a tot, like they have to be in different age groups. You'd have to have a lot more staff requirements to staff it, and we just didn't have the, our building's huge, but we have to break it down into separate rooms, and that was just going to be a lot more than if we combined the different age groups and opened 2 daycare homes, or group daycares on each side of the building. So that's what I'm kind of presenting on, is the group daycare aspect. So, as I think most of you know, we sent out surveys. You're looking like you have a question already.
I was gonna say,
Okay.
I don't know if it's been said, but we're talking about the kindergarten building, and
Oh.
it has the 2 halves.
Yes, and I will
Everyone's
show,
not up to speed on that,
yes,
where she's going.
I'm
to
sorry.
use the 2 sides to that building.
yes. That is the building that I have kind of looked at. I have, and we'll see pictures in the presentation as well, but I have talked and kind of approved that building with KDHE as far as licensing goes. And the licensing regulations are a lot different for like a group daycare versus the early learning center. And that also played into my role of choosing the daycare home versus the center setting. But, so I sent out a staff survey to all of USC 298 staff and got some responses. The thing about our staff responses that you can see on the left there is there's a big no there, but this went out to all staff whether they had young children or not. So obviously if you have no children, you're not going to be utilizing an early learning facility. So I broke it down more based off of just the staff with young children in that other slide. So out of our staff responses the first go round, 41% of the staff that filled it out do not have young children, or like their children are grown up and they're done with having young children at their house. So I broke it down into that better chart there where it shows the 50% yes and 42% maybe, and the 8% would not utilize. Our staff is fortunate that a lot of our staff has family in the area that they can have free childcare. As I know some of you, like when you are local and you move back and grandma's retired, that's a wonderful resource, but not everybody has it. So I thought this was a pretty good ratio of who would utilize it with our young staff. Then this is the ages needed for our staff. So as you can see, there's a good size need in the infant range, so 2 to 18 months. Right now, KDHE counts 18-month-olds as an infant spot. That affects your ratio to how many employees like you would need to be there. Your child to staff ratio is affected by that infant. And the state of Kansas is working on getting that age limit lowered to 12 months. And they're looking to pass that in the next couple of months, which could open up more slots potentially in that range. But right now, for the 2 to 18 months, we have 6 staff members that would potentially utilize that. 18 to 24 months, 6 staff members. 2 to 3-year-olds, 8 staff members, and 3 to 5-year-olds, 7 staff members. And then, as you can see, some that don't need it, birth to kindergarten, 1, and possibly younger. So, yes.
So just to kind of clarify some of these numbers, you said 41% of our staff don't have need for childcare, right? So that's leaving us with the 59%, or roughly
Yes.
16 people,
What's that?
16-ish people?
Well, so
And
depending on
how
how
many
many
of those-
kids they have.
Okay, but and how many of those are the same, do we know, family?
So I broke that down, and
Okay.
I didn't count, like, because we do have a lot of staff that both man and wife are
Yeah.
employed by us, and so I didn't count them twice in the numbers.
Okay.
Because the staff survey was not anonymous, so I could say, okay, this family needs this many slots, this family needs this many slots. So I did break that down in my numbers as when I was editing it. So, yes, that should be addressed in this. So this is who would what we were kind of presenting is if we were just open during the school year. Families have other options in the summer months, especially if you're employed by the district. You have summers off, you have Christmas breaks off, so they don't need that care at that time. And typically, if you are going to a daycare, you are paying for your spot even if you're not there using it. So like my kiddos go to a daycare, and I get it, like that's a business, and we will be paying for my kids to be there, even though they won't be there over like Christmas and Thanksgiving break. We will be still paying for their spot to hold that spot for them. So what we were presenting is that if we are just open during the school calendar, so we would be the same days that teachers work, we would be open. And we asked the staff if that would still be a yes or a no. And in that, we got a 79% yes and a 21% no, would not utilize. So this is some of our feedback from our staff. I can let you read that as you wish. They need a stable environment without fear of dismissal. That was one of the concerns that I saw of some of our staff, and it seems like it's a big need in our area. I've talked to several of the staff. They think it would be a plus. Daycare is hard to find. If you're in with a daycare, that's wonderful. You've got it set up and you're gonna be in with them, but I have talked to multiple staff that they are questioning having more kids because of the lack of daycare in the area. And I think that's a sad reality that we're in, is that they may be not continuing on with their family growth because of a lack of childcare in our area. So that is the feedback from the staff. It was all positive in nature. Then I also put out this survey to the community. It went out on Facebook. There was a letter sent home with elementary kiddos, and it was put on our website. So anyone in the community could fill out this survey. So I have, and it was an anonymous survey. So I have no idea out of these answers if there's any duplicates from one family, or like if mom and dad both fill. I don't know. That's information I don't have because it was an anonymous survey. But it could be grandparents, it could be, like by some of the responses you will see that some of them were grandparents and their grandkids need daycare or whatever. So that is, we had 45 responses from the community and 46 of them were yes responses. Then this is the need, what we got from the community as far as age groups. So as you can see, the infant need is our main need. Then we have the other age ranges as well. There's a spike at the 2 to 3 year old. I guess one positive I see in this is that there is potentially 21 infants in our community that need daycare. Like, what does that say for the future of our community? We have a lot of youth, we have a lot of families having little ones, and we want to keep them here. If they don't have daycare and they can't find jobs and that, like, they're gonna go someplace else. So I just see that that's a huge number. And for a small town, I think that's awesome to see. Would you utilize it if it was just following the district calendar? We got a 77% yes response and a 23% no. And do you see it as a need in our community? We had an overwhelming response of yes, 89% to 11% no. And so I think the need's there. Oh, did I skip a slide? Okay, I think that's not in the right order. Hold on, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened there. That slide got put way wrong. Yeah, let's put that back down there. Sorry about that. Alright, so this is very tiny, so you really probably can't read it very well on there, but this was some of the community feedback. This would be a major help to our community, and I would support it. A child care center is immensely needed within Lincoln County, no question about it. For me to send my younger preschool age kids, I would want to make sure it was focused more on play and learning socially, and not necessarily trying to get the kids ahead in the classroom with lots of class instruction or worksheets. And that was one of the feedbacks. Sounds like a good program. This would be a wonderful opportunity for kiddos in our district. Childcare is much needed in our community. So as you can see, all of the comments and feedback that I got were very positive in nature. And I was very surprised by that, because I thought, like, and this is everyone that I opened it up, and it was, they could write in whatever they wanted. And I thought we could get some negative feedback. And I was very surprised that pretty much everything people wrote in that feedback section was very positive. So that was good to see. Then we have what early childhood means for kindergarten readiness. I am a huge supporter of early childhood. I have talked to Scott because he has been concerned about the infant aspect and how does this help us in our need for the future. As you guys know, I was the Parents as Teachers educator here for a couple years, and my passion is early childhood. Babies learn too. They are not just sleeping and eating, they are learning every day. Their brains develop more in those first 3 years of life than they do at any other age. And that early childhood experience can be a positive or a negative for them. So I am passionate about early childhood, and I just see that in the first 3 years of life, their brains have developed so much. And that's before they're even getting in the door to our district. Like, so we're having 3-year-old preschool now. So if we could get just positive experience and a stability of a child care center into these families' lives before that 3-year-old preschool entry, I think we will see a substantial change in what that holds for our future. As you can see, early detection and early intervention equals a life full of possibilities. This is a quote from the pathways.org organization. Babies' early years are some of the most important years of development, which is why early detection and early intervention are so critical. So if we can get our staff trained on early detection and early intervention, and if we partner with MCPC, which we already have that umbrella with them, that they come down and they do at-risk evaluations for our preschoolers, and I have talked with them and they would be more than happy to come down and include us in that for our, if we do get up and running an early learning center. If we can catch some of those early detection things soon enough, it could be something that we're not even worried about by the time they enter preschool. We could have already had it dealt with, and the sooner you get on those, the sooner you correct them, and the brighter the future is for that child, who could potentially not be caught until they're in preschool or kindergarten, and then it just takes longer to correct it after it's been not detected for so long. So children who receive early childhood education are 25% more likely to graduate high school and 4 times more likely to complete a bachelor's degree. And Start Early Champions for Early Learning has done research, and they have found that every dollar invested in early childhood programs yields a $6.30 return on investment, as both the children in these programs and their parents grow to become more financially independent and less likely to need government assistance in the future. So I just think that this is crucial for our kindergarten readiness, and I think it could be substantial for our kids in the future. As one of those comments said, they would like to see it be play-based. That is absolutely what this would be. It would be a play-centered learning facility. Structured and unstructured play is huge in child development. Toddlers need at least 1 hour a day of free unstructured play and about 30 minutes a day of just kind of hands-on structured learning from an adult-led play. So they are learning, even if they are playing by themselves near someone else who's playing, that parallel play is teaching them things. They're observing the kid beside them, they're learning, they're picking up those things. If we can get kiddos into these facilities and seeing other kids socializing and just hitting on the social things, like just sharing and listening and taking turns and all of those things, that's what we want to see these kids be successful at, because then by the time they're in preschool, that stuff's already been dealt with and they can focus on the more learning-based education at that point in time. What we're trying to teach them is just social skills. And if you're a stay-at-home mom, I love that. I tried to stay home with my kiddos for as long as I could. And that's wonderful, but I saw a lack in my own kiddo because he was home with me during COVID, and he did not go to daycare until he was over 18 months old, and he struggled with it and just the socialization of being put in with other kids. So it's important. As much as I love that time with him, I feel like I kind of did him a disservice by not getting him in with other kids and that social factor sooner. So I love being a stay-at-home mom, but that was also something I saw in my own child. So when you get down to it, our startup costs would be, and this is a very rough estimate, around $35,000. That would include any renovations that would need to be made to the building and any of the new equipment that we would need. Nikki and I drew up a floor plan of the kindergarten building, and we presented that to KHE. They gave us some direction on what we would need to do as far as the renovations go. Since this would be considered two separate group homes, there has to be a distinction between side A and side B. So there has to be a barrier of some kind down between the bathrooms, which it seems silly to me because there's walls and doors there, but that room is all one, so there has to be some sort of division in that room. As you can see on the next page, that red line down the middle, there has to be some sort of a divider there. They cannot share anything, so side A would be completely independent of side B, and I didn't write side B on there, sorry. So, as you can see, the left is side B, but we would have to add a little kitchenette on that side too, which I just drew it in that little room where the divider would be, just as an example. It wouldn't have to go there. I don't know plumbing or anything. I don't know what would be the easiest place to put a little, but we would have to have a sink added. So there might be another option that would be more fit by a contractor to decide where that goes. But we would have to have like a little kitchen, fridge, microwave, countertop, sink area. So that would need to be added to that west side. Then we would also have to add an exit to that west side because each side would need 2 outdoor exits. So side A already has that, and then on the west side, I just drew as just my opinion, like, and again, I am no contractor, so there may be a better option there, but I drew that second exit there on the south side of the building, and there's a built-in countertop there, so I just put it to the side of that because I don't think we want to tear out that existing countertop, and there's windows, and so I just think that that would be the most logical in my mind to put in the second exit, so we could do that. This is the picture of that wall, so over kind of where that bookcase would be where I would recommend putting a second exit. Then this is the space between the bathrooms that has the current kitchen on the one side, and this would be that space that would need to be provided. At first, KDHE made it sound like we would have to put in a wall, but after talking to her further, she said that we could even put up like a baby gate down the middle of that if it was secured to the walls and secure enough. It could be any type of divider that we would see as being fit for that. So you could even do like a partition or whatever would be a logical explanation there, but that could cut down on our cost a lot if we don't have to build an actual wall in there. This is the outside of the building. We do have to add in 2 outdoor play spaces because they are considered 2 different facilities, so each side has to have their own play space. So if we would add that second outdoor exit on the south side there, I put that we put the side B's outside play area on the back in there, and then where we have the exits to the east, I put that we put the side A's playground on the east side, just so that you can exit straight out into the playground and you wouldn't have to worry about getting from point A to point B with the kids. It would just be all fenced in, gated in, and they could go out and play in their designated area. The only requirements that KDHE sets for the outdoor play areas is that, like, there's regulations on what you can have, like no merry-go-rounds. If you have swings, you have to have like a fall area. But you really can make those outdoor play spaces what you want. They have to have a fence around them that is 4 foot high, and there's no square footage requirement. So we have the space outside of that kindergarten building that we could really make those outside play areas whatever we wanted them to be. We would not have to get like the really fancy play equipment that the school has. We could get little like Lifetime, like plastic ones from whatever. You can do whatever you want as far as that goes. We wouldn't have to spend the money on the really fancy play equipment. We could have little ride-on toys or whatever and make that whatever we wanted it to be. So that really makes a difference when I was trying to kind of get our startup costs and kind of get those estimates made. Because there is no regulations on what kind of equipment we would have to have, that really makes our like window of our budget a little bit different. Like, so if we did want to go big and do like the nice play equipment, it could be thousands of dollars more than if we just got the little play equipment and had that in there. So then this is just pictures of the outside of the building. This is the back of the building over here. So this would be roughly where that second exit would be put in. And then we could put that play area back in this section. And then there's the east of the building where we could put the play area out to in this area. So that is just to give you guys an idea and put your head around what I'm thinking and what would need to be done in the kindergarten building to make this come to a reality. Startup needs, if we did do infant care, we would need cribs and pack and plays, high chairs, changing tables on each side, and like I said, these could be a variety of, like, our prices are ranging quite a bit of amount. I have been looking on like Facebook Marketplace. I have been in contact with other districts. A lot of this stuff I think we could get for just like a used item from some other district. I just found on Facebook Marketplace some like changing tables. I just found a play kitchen and stuff from Beloit for like $100. So I think there's options. If we got the top of the line stuff, this is where our prices would be. Brand new, top of the line things, that's where those prices came from. They came from Kaplan Early Learning Company, and they are all wood made, like made to last things, which As far as the cribs go, I would recommend going with like a wood crib and a sturdy one on rollers, because you can use them for your fire escapes and your emergency plans. You can put, like when you have infants and toddlers, you can put them all in one crib and roll them out, and that would be your escape plan. You can't really do that with a pack and play. The regulations as far as KDHE goes, your pack and plays have to be in prestige, like you have to have pristine condition. If there is a tear in the mesh on the side of the pack and play, you get docked for it. So I think that with the pack and plays, they would be cheaper initially, but I think you're going to be replacing them often. Whereas if you get a wood crib, there's not a whole lot that a kid can do to like break that down. Like you're going to be able to use it for many years to come. So I think the quality of stuff we get, we should think about that. Is this going to have to be replaced yearly, or is this something that, if this is something we're looking into? So this is just kind of a breakdown of what we would need. A lot of that stuff also, I noted, so the kindergarten building is used for kindergarten. Both classrooms are used for kindergarten right now. If they were to potentially move over to the elementary school building, their space would be limited. So I would assume that there would be some stuff left over in the kindergarten building, but until those changes may or may not happen, until that move is done, we wouldn't know what they would have accessible to us. So a lot of these things we might have, like the toys and the shelving and some of that stuff. There very well could be a ton of that we have at the preschool or we have in the kindergarten that we could use. So, and I think that if we get the word out and get the right people involved, donations and things can happen, and that could be a really good resource for us as well. I really don't feel like the startup cost is going to, I know that $35,000 is an alarming amount. I know that when you see that, it's startling. I don't foresee that being an issue. There are tons of grants out there for early childhood. Dean Hansen is pushing early childhood right now. They are huge supporters of early childhood. I think we could get a lot of grants through that. The Post Rock Foundation is going to be having another round of grants coming out. There is the Kindergarten Readiness Quality Subgrants. Child Care Aware does a startup stipend through that you can get some money there. Kelly had wrote a child care grant for the county, and she had money to give to startup daycares. She said that she still has that, and she could look into possibly seeing if she would have to talk to her board and everybody, but she said that there's a possible $4,000 there that she would be willing to give the district for our startup. She also just wrote a seed grant that she is waiting to hear back from, and she included us in that grant for $5,000. So those are some possible opportunities. Along with that, Child Care Aware does the sustainability grant, so that is a grant that we can apply for every year, and I think it's about $2,000 to $3,000 a year that you can get to sustain your child care center. So I'm going to go off of here to your budget. You guys have it in your packet. These are just possibilities of what the budget could look like. So budget A is based off of one full-time director at $20 an hour with benefits, and 2 full-time employees at $11 an hour in benefits. That includes 2 part-time employees that would be under 6 hours a day at the $11 an hour. And this includes the employment taxes and 180 days a year that we would be open. And that's based off of our district calendar this year, because we had not made the calendar for next year. So roughly 180 days that we would be open for the school year. So that salaries and benefits are there. The supplies and extras is just a kind of, I actually got the budgets for Lakeside and Beloit's centers and kind of gave my best judgment off of what they had put for supplies and extras, and this seemed to be kind of their what they spend yearly on their extras. The food service is including what we would get back from the food program, so that's why that is so, like, I was very impressed by that number. That just kind of surprised me that it would be that small, but that would be based off of what we would get back from the food program as well. So that brings us to the $98,000 in total expenses. And then if we charged $30 a day, like regardless of price, or regardless of age, $30 a day for a full-time kiddo, and then $20 a day for half-time kiddos. So that would be the kids that go to preschool in the morning or the afternoon. And then we would feed them lunch and then transfer them to, like, so we take them from the preschool building over to the daycare for the parents. That would be a nice thing for the parents, because right now parents have to leave in the middle of the day to get their kids and take them whichever way. And as working at the preschool this year, that produces problems for some parents, and we run into issues of, can I get my kid picked up, and can I be there in time, or parents forget what time it is and then we have to call them and be like, oh yeah, it's time to go get your kid. So that is a convenience factor in this, and I think that would be a huge benefit to some of those preschool families that are trying to transfer and move their kids around in the middle of the day. And then $10 after school care. So that would be from 3:30, and the kids would just be brought right on over, and no transportation or anything needed there. So if we were full, that's what those revenue minus the expenses, and that would be with 12 infants and toddlers, 8 preschool kids, and 4 after-school kiddos. So that would be divided between the two sides to come up with those numbers. Then our budget B is based on the full-time director and then 2 full-time employees and only 1 part-time employee. So we could have fewer kids. We would only be able to have 21 kids. But that would be the budget there. And then estimated budget C is based off of 1 full-time employee and 3 full-time, or 1 full-time director and 3 full-time employees at $11 an hour, with not the part-time employees. So that kind of changes those numbers around. I also did a figure of if we charge the $28 a day for a full-time position, and then $18 for half day and $10 for the after-school care. These numbers, the $30 a day, I have called around to all of the local providers. They currently charge $25 a day in our area. That is pretty standard across the board. One of our providers in our community charges $37 a day for infant care, so 0 to 18 months is $37, and then it moves down to $25 after that. And then the half days are like $15. There were some discrepancies on how everybody charged, but that was pretty much the standard, was $25 a day, $15 for a half a day, and then I think $8 for after school care. So our numbers would be a little higher. One thing that I can say in support of that is that we wouldn't be charging like people for the times when we're not open. Like, so as a teacher or as somebody that's employed by the district, I am paying for those slots over Thanksgiving break. So the difference, and like you pay to hold your spot over the summer, so the difference that you'd be making up in that you're paying that you're not there, to what you might be increasing or paying while you are there, that would be something to think about. And these numbers could change a lot, like with the infant slots and stuff. If that does if KDHE does pass it to move the infants down to 12 months, that could be a huge, we could potentially have more kids qualify, and that would be it would be good for us. So KSDE also does we get to count any kiddos that are 3 and older, so they would be counted in our enrollment. You could count them as a full day kindergarten kid if they were going to the daycare and also to our preschool. You could count them in that. So I think you get a little bit of funding on that end as well. And just to give you guys an idea, this is the kids to staff ratio breakdown. So right now, if you have 1 employee and 1 0 to 18 month old, then you can have 3 18 to 3 year old, 18 month to 3 year olds, 3 to 4 year olds 2, and 4, 5 and up. So it really changes your numbers depending on how many infants or toddlers or whatever you have. And these numbers can be moved down, like they can always move up, but they can't move down. So you can have more, so say you don't have as many 18-month to 3-year-olds, you can have more 3 to 4-year-olds, or you can have more 5 and up, but you can't have more younger ones. So that's kind of how that goes. So we can have more kids if we finagle it right. My suggestion would be to have no more than 2 infants on each side. So that would serve 4 infant spots in our place. And I think with staffing and with our ratio, that would be the most feasible thing to do for it to be successful. So then back to my proposal would be that we would do following the district calendar and be open from 7:30 to 5:15. Have the daily fee of $30 a day and $600 a month. Preschool half day, $20 a day, $400 a month. And after school care, $10 a day to $200 a month. Depending on the children enrolled, if we were enrolled fully, we would need 1 director, 2 full-time employees, and 2 part-time employees. And that was shown, that's the one I have highlighted in the budget. How do we get people to work? It's hard to find people who want to work. My employee incentives, I would say, is that since we do follow the district calendar, that is appealing to parents if they have the same schedule as their kids. If they are wanting to be a stay-at-home mom and that's hard for them to leave their kid, the fact that they would still be able to be with their kids is a positive. I think it would be something to look at to possibly offer childcare discounts for any of the daycare employees, because if we're only paying $11 an hour and they're bringing their kids there, we don't want to just be paying them to pay for their childcare. So it doesn't really make sense for them to come and work if that's all they're making is to pay for their childcare. So, and then offering the benefits, I think, is a good employee incentive. Time-sensitive things on this. I know you guys have to talk about it and see what you think is best for us as a district. The only things I would like to point out to you is NCPC is writing their grant currently for the following year, and if we do want them to be involved with our at-risk kiddos and things like that through the block grant, we would need to let them know so they can include that in their grant for next year. We would have to be under that umbrella before they get approved for their grants. KDHE is operating on a grant right now, and they are waiving the yearly licensing fee, which would be $174 for us for the first year. And they are waiving all fingerprint fees for employees, so we could get those fingerprint fees waived. So it's not a substantial amount, but when you're counting every dollar, if we could get a decision made and we could get applied for our license by the end of the fiscal year, that would be something to look into. Possibilities. I really think this is something that we can make whatever we want it to be. This is something we can change for our district and community needs. It is something we could possibly implement a pathway for our high school students that are looking into going into education or early childhood. And that could potentially open up some windows for employment needs. If you have a high schooler coming down and maybe they could cover lunch or something so that you don't have to have an extra employee there. And it's offering more job opportunities for young parents in our area. It is offering daycare slots for young parents in our community to hopefully keep those young families here. And I think it is a huge recruitment tool for future employees. If they are looking at coming here and working and they don't have daycare options, they're not going to come here. So putting staff as a priority, which I think as a district-led childcare facility, I think that would be something we could do. And I think it could be a huge recruitment tool for us for future use. So that is what I have. Do you guys have any questions for me about? I threw a lot at you.
Yes.
Yes.
I didn't see anywhere where liability was mentioned. Is anything different about liability exposure or something like this?
A liability exposure. So we would have the licensing through KDHE, and they would go over our regulations and everything. As far as like liability insurance, I think we're already covered under our insurance for that. I would have to look into it further, I guess. But yeah, we can definitely look into it. I will note it down. Okay, you're good.
Did you look at the budgetary impacts following the school calendar versus not following the school calendar?
I didn't, and I think that that's something we can look at. So I guess I kind of did because Lakeside and Beloit are open year round, and our budget compared to them looked better based off of not being open year round. So basically Lakeside is set up very similar as far as its two group like Beloit's a little trickier to kind of break down their budget compared to ours because they're an early learning center. They have like 10 classrooms and we just don't have that. So, but based off of Lakeside's budget compared to what we would do just as being open through the district calendar, it would be a pretty big difference. Like they're barely breaking even. And we wouldn't be much better than that, but that.
I just think, looking at the number of staff that we have based on your survey who are actually interested or say that this service would be useful, and the spots that you would have available, you are going to have to open it up to the community.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
if you're only offering it to them for 180 days a year,
And
versus
that's
for
what I
a
was-
full-time employee, that is not
what I was
helpful.
gonna
That's
say, is that
actually
wouldn't work
worse.
for anybody but a school employee then.
Right.
Well, so I asked that question, and I've actually talked to a lot of community members about that. In the survey, the feedback was that through the community members, let me look up here.
77%.
It was 77% that said yes. So that's not 100%, but those 77% may have high school age kids that can watch their younger ones during those breaks. They may have a family member, a grandma, an aunt, an uncle, whoever that is employed by the district that has those breaks off. So there are options there, and then also I have one lady say that she has a high school girl that nannies throughout the summer, but can't be there for the school year. So there's options that way. So I think that there is opportunities for that, but I absolutely see your concern there because as a full-time employee, that would be.
It's difficult. I mean, you hear from parents all the time how difficult it is just on the days when we don't have school and they have to find anything for one of their kids
Oh,
who is
absolutely.
in school all day long.
Oh, absolutely.
So then taking away just childcare for anybody who's not in school full-time,
Oh.
that becomes even more of a detriment.
Yeah, and I think that that's kind of a catch because like in this setting, if say an employee was sick, it wouldn't be closed for the day like a home daycare would, but also, yeah, I get both as a mom myself and dealing with sick daycare staff right now. We're struggling to figure out what to do with our kids this week. So I understand where that's coming from. I think there's pros and cons to every situation, and I think that's the kind of the cool thing about this is we can make it what we want it to be, and if we find that, hey, just being open during the school year, that's just not working, we're not filling our slots, or we're not, like, I think this is just something that we can kind of make into whatever we want it to
Good
be.
spot to start.
Huh?
Good spot to start.
Yes. And kind of go from there.
So, I would like to share some thoughts, because I have, and you know this,
I do.
because we've been very transparent and honest, and I have some struggles. So I would like to point out though Krista's credentials, just so you know. She does have a degree in early childhood education. She comes to us with experience in the Manhattan area in early learning centers, so she is the primary base of knowledge for this, and she's done a tremendous amount of work on this, and I want to say in front of the board and the community, thank you very much for that. Because it has, her Wednesdays of supposed plan time have been working and researching and meeting with the state and talking to people and visiting other school districts, so for us to get a good picture of what's going to happen, you have really put forth a lot of effort, and it's so appreciated. Here's my thoughts. Lake Perry, Central Plains, they are both open about 6:45 in the morning till 6:30 at night, year-round. When the board considers this, and this is where I struggle, that is a huge commitment. That is a huge commitment for Krista, and if Krista Byrne is out and leaves, what do we do? Because we don't have a line of people for any position we have anywhere. So, to me, that's a concern. I will say this, I'm concerned we'll have enough slots to reach outside of our individual staff. So, if our mission is to educate children and work towards kindergarten readiness, I would say typically our educators' children are probably not our most at-risk population to target for kindergarten readiness. So, and I'm just being transparent with you as the board and with the community, because as I said before, this has been a really emotional struggle for me. Is this our mission? It is our mission, but what entity or what population is our mission? Because these are taxpayer dollars. So even though they're paying, if we have to subsidize this program, we're subsidizing it with taxpayer dollars, and so that always weighs heavy on my shoulders, but you guys probably know that. I do believe in early learning. I think the research is huge on ACEs, adverse child experiences, that a kid knows by the time they're 24 months if they're safe, if they're loved, if they're secure. And likewise, stimulation develops those neural pathways, that thing that's it's in the pamphlet here called neuroplasticity. It allows those expansions of new neural pathways in learning, and that's what would aid us to kindergarten readiness. But I'm concerned we're not hitting the population. So that dialogue goes on. I would never say I'm opposed to this, but this takes deep thought. And this takes strategic moves to hit our target population. I would also ask you to go ahead and allow her to apply for the MCPC, put that in, and also apply for the licensure. Because the worst case scenario, if we're not ready to launch, we're not required to use it. We don't have to accept the grant money. But if we wait too long and can't get it on that loop, it'll cost us down the road. So to me, it's a no-loss situation to go ahead and have her do that, get our license applied for. I will have to split that building. The group model is so much better for us. The center model has 600 individual regulations that go along with that running of a center. And Beloit, for whatever reason, chose that, but it is a heavily regulated process compared to the groups. And she did her due diligence on that, and both superintendents agreed with that as well. So, boom, you got that one. I do need to split that kindergarten building into 2 addresses to have 2 licenses. And I don't know if there's any opposition to that, having a, whatever it is, a 201A and a 201B or something like that, but I need to go to the post office and do that before she can apply for the licenses.
NCPC understand that there's a chance they would be putting us in with their grant process and we may not be ready?
I can definitely pass that
Because
along.
I don't feel like we want to ask them to put us in and include us and then all of a sudden say, ooh, you did all that work, but hey, we're not gonna take it, and then come around next year and say, hey, we wanna be involved in this process, and they're like, but do you really?
You kind of
Yeah.
fooled me once.
So, I mean, as long as we make it very clear to them that yes, we are
Yes.
interested, but
We're not.
what if we're not there?
And again, the board really needs to think about the year-round versus school calendar. Because like any entity that's out there, if somebody doesn't show up, then somebody's gonna be there from 6:45 in the morning till 6:30 at night. And I will tell you this, it's not gonna be me.
It'll be me. So.
So, huge opportunity, huge need, and I totally agree with all that. I think we really need to pick this apart and make sure the direction that you as a board want to move. Be a huge benefit for our employees.
Yes.
If we just made it an employee thing and it could break even, huge benefit. The need is so great amongst our own staff.
That's where I see it. Could you explain what you mean? More, would I understand, more beneficial by being year-round versus just school year?
For those people who are not our
For the
employees.
community.
Well, for
Yeah,
the
for
community.
community
Yeah.
people, yeah. Because I can see, where am I gonna go with 24 kids on spring break?
Right.
Who's gonna absorb them?
But if, you know, you get to spring break, or summer, I think is the biggest one, and you have a drop in kids, maybe you also get to have less staff. And so,
And Nikki had presented this idea that say, so these will be two individual like facilities. So say that we would have a drop in kids for the summertime. Say we leave one side open and employ that one side throughout the summer months. That's also an opportunity that we have. I don't know if that's the right answer. I think there will be a drop in kids in the I mean, I don't think that as one that is employed through the district, if I have the opportunity to keep my kids home, I probably would. I mean, I'm not saying there's not days I'd be like, okay, somebody else take them. That'd be right. But for the most part, if you're off work, you're wanting to spend that time with your kids, I would think. So that's also something we can look into.
I think there's a couple things, I don't know if I can talk. So last spring when we were recruiting teachers, we actually had a really great applicant for an elementary teacher that had 4 kids that live in our county, and she didn't come because she's like, I don't have daycare here. And she looked, and so she turned the job away. We have a huge issue with our staff with the preschool piece, because they have to, like, if their plane period or their lunch doesn't land on when preschool gets out, they're struggling to get people cover their class. I gotta go pick up my kid and take him to daycare, or I gotta take them to grandma's, or whatever the case is. We have a huge issue with that with our staff. We're very blessed to have a young staff, but it does come with issues. The other piece to this is, I think that needs to weigh heavily is the recruitment of staff, because, you know, anything west of Salina, probably west of Manhattan, honestly, Topeka, we're just out in the boondocks anyways. But, I mean, what they're doing for staff recruitment in terms of housing, you know, hopefully we have those apartments soon, and then in daycare, and, you know, whatever they can use to recruit, they're doing it. And I think this would be a huge piece to that puzzle that we're gonna struggle with as we move forward.
And I might add, I don't know if I said this, Perry LeCompton offers a 50% discount to their staff, and Central Plains offers a 15% discount to their staff. It affect the budget numbers, but that's
I
just
think
what
that
they
would be
do to get them to use it.
budget numbers, but they can be offset by another
Yeah.
part of the budget.
Where's the gain and loss? Yeah.
I mean,
You know, there's some crazy ideas out there about going to all-day, 5-day-a-week pre-K3 with built-in nap times and break times, and all-day, 5-day-a-week pre-K4. Wednesdays, no pre-K provides barriers for parents as well. And half-days provide barriers. And again, our mission is to educate kids. Preschool readiness, or kindergarten readiness is huge in that. So why do we only have them for 3 hours when we could get double the educational or the time with those kiddos to work on kindergarten readiness. We haven't even broached that subject as far as surveys of interest on full-day preschool.
Just on a note on that, as one of the parents in the preschool, you would definitely have to have naps because they would be done. Like, cause the kids are pretty much done just by the 3 hours. Like their focus, their attention span, like they're worn out.
Has to be a lot of play orientation
Yes.
because, but they do go to a daycare facility who, those that aren't in our facility are somewhere all day.
Yeah.
And getting naps and getting rest time, so
Yes.
it could be done. We could just throw in that educational component
Absolutely.
and really launch that to a different level, I think, so. Just a lot of thoughts. I would like, if the board's okay, get the application, I'll get the addresses split, we'll get the licensure application in, just so we have it in our back pocket.
Well, and I'll add to Jessica, the NCPC, they apply for the grant every single year.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be,
I
I
think
mean,
we
I think
just
we
have
need
to
to be
have it.
polite and tell them, like you said, but it would be literally adding Lincoln into their line.
Yeah.
I
Just so
don't-
that they're covered.
Yes.
And I've talked to Karen quite a bit about it, and she comes down to the preschool every Tuesday, so it would be very easily done for me to just have that conversation with her. One thing, but since we were talking about fire marshals earlier, that would also be one of our next steps in getting but that would have to happen after our renovations are made to the building, like we add that second exit on the one side or whatever, then we would have to have a fire marshal come in. But I think Scott's been bitten by that, like with the tech building, like he seems very concerned about the whole fire marshal, and I respect that and understand that. I mean, people are putting up daycares in their homes and like they're passing with fire. I don't think that there's going to be near as many holdbacks for us in this situation as there were in the tech building, hopefully. So.
I do think when it comes to putting a divider down that center room, though, you would be better off with those very long baby gates.
I think
Because
so
you're
too.
still gonna wanna have access from
To the other
other
side.
side to the storage room. And
Oh, absolutely. And like,
And if you put up a full, like, just a divider or a
Yes.
barrier, then
yeah,
you lose,
you lose that
you have to
space.
walk all the way around the building.
So I think, that's what I think it would be good to have.
Remember those, the big accordion
Yeah,
thing we
accordion.
talked about?
Yeah. I think there's options. I'm just glad that it doesn't have to be a wall. So. But,
All right.
all right, well, thank you guys.
Thank you, Krista. A lot of research there.
I'm gonna sneak out on you guys. Have a good rest of your evening.
Those boys to bed.
Oh, yes. I saw them then. Oh, tired.
All right.
We would all like a nap.
Okay, any other discussion on that before we move on? Okay. Next, dual credit compensation for 298 teachers. Nikki?
Mine will be short. So we have several of our teachers that either have or are working towards getting their masters. Now, the higher commission has kind of changed some of the requirements. So it used to be, if you had your masters, you could pretty much teach a college class. Now you have to have your masters in that subject area, which has kind of put a real kink in some of our kids being able to take college classes in-house. They're taking them online. Not that online is not successful, but what we've found is that most of our kids are a lot more successful if they have an actual teacher there. Currently, we so the college pays the school for these college classes, whatever they get paid. It's kind of a partnership between the college and the school. And we give the teacher 50% of that. I guess my proposal is that we give the teacher the 100% and in hopes that some of our teachers start turning and offering some more classes. We haven't offered English comp for quite some time to our kids. It's been online, which it has shied some kids away from taking the college class, which I think is just sad. We no longer can offer, we used to offer history. I mean, we had a plethora of classes that we were able to teach in-house, and I just feel like our students learned so much better. So if this enticed some of our teachers that are debating whether to go get their master's and what to go get it in, encouraging them to go get it in a subject area that they can teach a dual credit course and give our kids that opportunity in-house to take the class. I don't know what that current 50% goes to. The kids still have to provide their own textbook and all that. But I guess, I would ask that you would consider giving the 100% to the teachers and hope that they might get their masters. We have a lot of young staff that still don't have it, and I think that a lot of them are working on it.
I mean, just so you know, the level of compensation, they won't quit early on us because of their investments. Most of them pay about $400 to $450 a credit hour, so it's about $1,200 for the extra prep, and they are intentionally taking on another prep for this class, plus the investment in their master's degree, which is probably, that compensation won't pay for their master's. They'll get maybe $1,200 a semester. That would be, in my mind, compensation for willingly doing another prep.
And they jump through a lot of extra hoops that we don't. Like they get evaluated every semester by a person from the college, not us. So they follow our evaluation and they follow the college's evaluation. They have to write a specific syllabus that follows all of the college guidelines. They have to give a final that the college approves. So they're jumping through quite a few hoops to offer this class to our kids.
Do we have any idea of what that extra 50% covers?
It doesn't
Is
cover anything.
It's not, it's just going into our college.
There's no extra expense to the district.
Not at all, no. We just keep 50% of it.
And how many college classes are we currently offering? That are being taught by our teachers, not ones that
Human growth and development, psychology, college algebra, computer applications. I can't remember what computer solving concepts or something. Some computer class, like an intro class. Might be it.
I don't think we have any core content dual credit right now, and that's what we'd really like to get to.
I am really hoping that if we start encouraging this.
Well, I take it back to math.
you have algebra.
I think that I have a teacher that would potentially do comp, contemplating on what to get their master's in, and I've been pushing very hard because I feel like that's just one that if those kids can take it here, that would be huge.
That's really leg up on some of those gen eds to have them done at home.
Oh yeah, it saves their kids thousands of dollars when they go to college if they have all those classes taken. I think I graduated from Lincoln with like 32 hours. Of course, that was back in the day when they offered the night classes, so you'd go up at night, or the summer night classes, we'd go up there and take, psych and soc and human growth and all those classes, so.
Yeah, you could get comp and
Yeah.
college algebra and
Yes.
speech and.
Yeah, and if you cut a semester out of your college, that's
It's huge.
housing, it's huge, huge. I just think we need to offer that to kids.
Speech is a huge thing in most districts. We can't offer it, but if anybody knows of believe it or not, a pastor has the credentials to be qualified to teach dual credit speech. So if you know of a reverend or someone in such a position that would be interested in coming up for an hour a day, we could offer dual credit speech through that position.
And I'm not even opposed to doing them as night classes again, because I do think we would have kids that would jump on that opportunity just to give a speech in front of their classmates instead of in front of, 150 kids in a large college.
Well, I'm all for offering that extra 50% back to the teacher as opposed to keeping it as a district. I know we are trying to count every dime as a district, but also retaining our teachers is probably a little bit more important. Especially if they're gonna go out and spend the money to get a master's, we want them to be enticed to stay here and not travel elsewhere.
That $600 isn't making or breaking.
No, it's not.
We don't even know where it's going. That's how
Right.
funny it is.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's going somewhere,
It's not
we're
a part,
using it.
it's not a part of our budget
No.
process. process, it's
Yeah.
just fluff that comes back, so they deserve it.
Yeah, I would move that we adjust the compensation for our USD 298 teachers that are teaching dual credit courses.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, motion by Jessica, seconded by Gina, that USD 298 Board of Education allow dual credit teachers to receive 100% compensation from sponsoring colleges. Does that sound all right? Okay. Any other discussion?
You
Oh.
might specify a date, because we have teachers that are doing it right now, and
Oh.
there's gonna be teachers doing it next semester.
Next semester, can we do it
Now, have we already received the funding?
Retroactive.
I don't know that.
They haven't been paid for this fall semester yet.
No, then could do it retro back to the beginning of the year.
Could they have paid for fall, why don't we
Yeah,
just make it, retroactive,
For the
start of the year?
for the 22-23 school year.
On a discussion item, in a roundabout way, it'll make our salaries cost the district more, right?
Oh, the teachers that get masters,
Teachers that get the masters are
yeah.
gonna move up, yes.
Yep.
But quality is far out.
Yes, it's a kind of trade-off, or
Yeah.
however you wanna look at it.
It's
Okay. Okay, so, adjustment to the motion, receive 100% compensation from sponsoring colleges for the 2022-23 school year.
And going forward.
And going forward, because I think if you just say it that way, then it's just this
Every year
year.
we'd have to do it, yeah.
Yeah, it would say going forward.
Okay. Does that fit everyone? Okay, did you get all that credit? Okay. Any other discussion? Comments? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? 6-0. All right. Thank you, Nikki. Next, calendar presentation. You have a calendar in front of you.
I would just say that the calendar committee met a couple times. We've been bantering on email quite a bit. Lots of good suggestions back and forth. Lots of modifications up to it, including one as of today at about 3 o'clock. So a lot of good bantering about this. It really mirrors our current calendar right now, almost exactly. We have a total in this calendar of 1,189 hours of student instructional time.
Did we do away with half days on Wednesdays?
They are the yellow days.
So just once a month?
There were.
Or-
Yeah, we did change the Wednesdays, yeah, sorry about that. Instead of doing it every single day, we were finding out by the time the kids left, the teachers got organized, it ended up being about a 1 hour afternoon. So we reached out, we surveyed staff, and we feel if we exit at noon, not 1 o'clock, noon, and have a sack lunch ready for kids to go, then we can give staff lunch from 12 to 12:30. Then we really have once a month, 12:30 to 3:45, or end of contract day, to really focus and concentrate on that time instead of kind of a willy-nilly Wednesday thing every day. We were having huge issues with monitoring children every Wednesday afternoon, so that was not worth the pain.
Yeah, those teachers and people miss out on whatever else is going on also,
Right.
depending on who it is.
So we thought we would give this a try. It's not a full PD day every month like some calendars in the past have had. We get the kids in school at least for a solid half a day. And then we also have a good half a day of solid collaboration time with teachers.
So there's technically more student contact time then, because we're not doing it every week.
Hour for hour, we're almost identical. to last year.
Okay, so we cut out,
By the way, it bunches up, but
okay.
Or a couple of half days on Fridays and.
Parent-teacher conferences are 2 evenings instead of a morning and an evening. The staff overwhelmingly wanted a full day of compensation instead of half a day, that compensated day. The only way you have that is work 2 evenings. Makes for long days, but they wanted to have the Friday off. So we really tried to be
That works for them.
accommodating to what they really would like to see in the calendar. This isn't something you necessarily have to vote on. The negotiated agreement says it needs to be presented at the November meeting. You certainly can take this and look it over if you want and digest it. I can tell you these days have been counted over and over and over. And we counted again this morning, didn't we?
And over again.
Yeah, she's quite irritated with my need to count and count and count.
Done.
There,
So you can make motions on this in December, or if you like the way it looks, it can be accepted now. Or I told the calendar committee it would really be nice if we could get more than 1 year at a time. A lot of districts will have at least 2 years at a time. But we'll see if we go to that or not.
is that more counting or less counting?
Twice as much half as often.
Okay, well, thanks to the calendar committee for all their time and energy put into this. Any other thoughts or questions? Do you want to push it to December and everybody get a chance to look at it, or do you want to make a move on it and accept it tonight?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Okay,
I'll second it.
okay. Motion by Jessica, seconded by Gina. KASB 298 Board of Education accept the 23-24 school calendar as presented. Any other discussion?
You don't think there'll be any more changes to it? You mentioned there was just a change this morning on it.
I think that we were kind of whittling down on the emails, and I think we're at the end of them.
Okay.
I might count it again.
There will be changes at some point. of
Well,
course.
Yeah, we'll probably be
I mean, when are you
modifying.
scheduling the MPL tournament and?
Okay. Those days will be coming.
Yeah, those always come later.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So, okay. Any other? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? 6-0. Okay. Yeah. Community meeting dates and locations.
So I asked John if I could put this on here as we worked on the agenda. I would like to present to the board the concept of possibly having quarterly or even more frequent meetings that are not a structured board meeting with this type of an agenda, but just a community meeting. As we move forward with strategic planning and some of the things that I'll discuss in my superintendent's report, we need to, I feel, make even a greater effort at making sure the community has an opportunity to speak. And I will say this, because it was said in an open commission meeting, if there is a concept out there that this school district is run by a secret society called the Board of Education and the superintendent, besides me being livid that that comment would be made in a public meeting by a public official, the fact of the matter is it is so false, it's laughable. And however, if that is the misperception of our school district, I'm not so sure that we need to show them that that is absolutely not the case, and that is not the way we run this school district. People have access to any piece of information they want. Every meeting is open to the public. Every meeting is recorded. But if that's not enough, I'm recommending to the board that we take one more step and just have a meeting where the agenda is public conversation.
And the discussion here was to open it up, and basically if community members have questions, if there's something we would like to share, we share it. It doesn't have to be a structured board meeting. I'm not sure that.
Is it gonna be an actual board meeting, whereas we're
Well,
all present?
I think we would put it down as a board meeting so that all of us could show up, but I don't know yet whether it would be required that everyone be there. I think if you wanna be up on what's discussed, it would be prudent to show up. But
I think, as we talked about it, most of the delegation is thank you, we appreciate your time. And this would give a chance to banter a little bit. And if there was a question or concern, instead of just saying thank you, and the next item is, you could actually have a conversation.
or people feeling like they have to stand up and a little bit more informal possibly.
I think this is a great time to do it. I think there's a lot of turmoil going on, there's also a lot of people who are very happy, but doing it right now, even with the turmoil that's happening, it shows that every single one of us is willing to step out there and say, hey, we're here to listen to whatever you wanna say. We are listening and we are open and we do wanna hear it now, as opposed to reading it somewhere or hearing it through the grapevine or.
Just like you said about delegations, where somebody just comes and talks, and we don't really have a chance to ask questions, they don't, there can be misinterpretation just because we don't have that back and forth banter, like we said, but you also gotta make sure it's civilized.
Yes, and for me,
Yeah.
that's,
Fruits and
there's,
vegetables?
this will kind of be a trial thing too. If come and it's just people
And it could be.
unloading, then it may not be
That's not
productive.
productive for anything.
No.
Is there a way we're going to be able to deter that at all, or shut them down?
It is a school board meeting, and the school board is in charge of the meeting.
Okay.
Better than just hanging out. It would be a school board meeting so that there was structure.
I'll bring my hammer. Nobody ever gave me a gavel, so I'll just use a hammer.
How often are you thinking?
I just wanted to open up for discussion of the board. Do you think quarterly is enough?
I think so.
I think maybe it's a deal where start it out and try it and see how much interest there is. If nobody shows up.
We're in a terrible time with holidays right now.
Right.
So is a January and what would the next quarter be? March? End of March, 1st of April? Maybe try to get a couple in the spring, see how it goes. Continue it. I think the Commons would be a great place to have it because it's a lot of seating, it's very open, it's not this four-wall containment thing with 8 chairs.
And as we move forward and we have, we'll get some more information from DCF and some of these people doing research if we have some questions or some input that we would like to have on a direction or have us say what our direction is so that the public understands why we've chosen that direction. I don't know that we need to ask them to tell us where we're going, but we need to allow them to know this is what the board thinks is important and this is where we're going. If everybody gets up and screams on a table, then maybe the board will consider that.
It's a tough thing. We had a lot of conversation on the drive to Wichita and back from the conference. And nobody in Topeka or Washington puts out a survey for every single decision they have to make. But patrons always have the opportunity to put input in. So your decisions, like any governing body, should be cognizant of input. But leadership of this board is your decision. And sometimes they don't have all the information, and you do, and sometimes they bring points up that you step back and have a think about. So it's a great thing. We're not asking permission for everything we do, but if that perception is out there, I think we need to put that to bed.
I'd rather answer people's questions and have them make up their own answers and put them on social media.
Yeah.
I mean, that being said, you can't answer every question because some of it, is confidential, it can't be, but some people don't realize that, I don't think.
My initial thoughts on January, and we've talked about this before, January has a fifth Monday, the 30th. There appears to be nothing on the school calendar here for that Monday night. Or we have Thursday the 12th, which would be a Thursday right after a board meeting, but there's nothing. Otherwise, we have basketball every night, except for Wednesday nights.
This fifth Mondays when we used to talk about getting together, if there were enough of those, maybe that's what the fifth Monday shifts into.
Well, I don't think it's all bad. Sometimes when there's that fifth Monday, it makes our meetings 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks apart. And it would give us a meeting in between there. Is that the 30th? Okay.
I'll plan that for it.
I know, that's quite a ways out there on the calendar, isn't it?
It's not that far. Unfortunately not.
Under my shoes it is.
Would you do the same time, or would you move it up to like 6? Like 6.
6.
I think so.
I suppose.
What else do you do on a cold January night on Monday?
Gives you another hour to argue.
If we're gonna have a meeting, if we're gonna call it a board meeting or whatever, do we need to? Maybe a special meeting?
It'd just be a deal where I'm now sending out my information saying I'd like to have a special board meeting on January 30th at 6 o'clock.
Okay, so
That's how we do every other board meeting. I ask
Yeah,
for it,
yeah, that's what I was
for a
supposed to do.
special one.
So,
Are you gonna publicize it though, better
Yes.
than our?
Oh, yeah.
we can't publicize it any better than our regular meetings, they're all out there. We'll send out invites.
Yeah.
We might even perk a pot of coffee, keep you awake from it.
Yeah, we could have all kinds of snacks and drinks.
Okay. Not seeing much beyond that, the next fifth Monday would be the end of May
Yeah.
for fifth Mondays. The 27th of March, which would be the fourth Monday, it'll be the last Monday of the month, is also open on this calendar.
I'm gonna get through the first one first.
Okay. And that's
Nobody
fine.
shows up.
See how it is. Okay. Works for me. Does that work for you? Yep. Okay. All right. KASB convention report.
I kind of shared my cool slides. I just wanted to give Gina and John a chance to share
My cool slide.
your cool slides.
I printed a couple of mine off, or back at the bank and printed off some of them, but you can't ever read them. It's like, you better carry out my phone.
Well, then I am the slacker.
Just saying, John. Just-
Yes, yes. I guess I'll go first, if you want me to. Went to KSB convention. For starters, I feel like in the past, maybe some people have felt that not everybody could go, or that only a certain few could go. And I would really encourage, there was other boards there that had like their whole board or most of their board there. They just listed as a special meeting, or they let people know that they're going so that it's announced, but it gives them a chance to go. If all of you wanted to go, anyone wants to go, please don't hesitate to ask, offer. I know it'd be much more fun than sitting in the combine, probably.
They wouldn't be as good.
Yeah. But it's very good to talk with other people and just to learn some things. Opening session, if anybody's looking for a speaker or somebody to come and pump you up, Craig Zablocki was very good and very energetic. It's typical conference, they get you wound the first night, and he had some very good things. So I know when we were on Farm Bureau and different things, people are always looking for convention speakers, even somebody to bring in He does high school, but he didn't do grade school. I'm not sure why he doesn't do grade school, whether he just can't stand real small kids. But, that was one. Went to a transportation meeting. That was interesting. We alluded to it earlier. Wakanda's getting 4 of the electric buses, $1.5 million to get 4 of them, so quite the investment. And as they said, it's gonna be the end of May of next year before they think they'll see them. All kinds of things, but interesting things out there. The 10 passenger van's going away. People got canceled on orders, and there's maybe another van coming out with a 1-ton chassis and dually, and it can be refurbished, or depending on how it comes out, nobody's real sure how they're gonna mark it, whether they'll mark it as a 10 passenger or a 12 or what it is, but there are ways to convert those down if we need to. And went to another one with the president guy, and a lot of boards have a meal before their meeting, half hour before. I don't know if that's anything that interests anybody, or once in a while, or anything that way. Thought I'd throw it out there. That's about it. Oh, McPherson's doing an early learning outside the classroom, like our tech building, only it's a way more complicated system, and in a community their size, they have way more options. But it was interesting to hear how they got through some of their roadblocks and how they're working to get kids real life experience, internships and job training. Basically, their senior year they can work in the community, but they have many different, they have like 56 different partnerships with people, so I'm not sure we could find 56 people in our community to send kids.
Dr. Watson spoke, which was, it's always good when Dr. Watson speaks. And just one of the slides I took a picture of was just that, you know, that we have increased from 2016 to 2021 and the various things of percentage of kids who are graduating, but we're still, like, we're at, students with disabilities, we're at 81%, free and reduced lunches, we're at 83, statewide. English language learners, 82.6, and just all students, it's at 88.1, and the, which they want, their goal is 95%. And so then they talked about what can districts do to make a difference or work on some of these things. One of the key ones was lower chronic absenteeism immediately, and I thought I took a picture of that. What did he say it is now? It's crazy.
Was it 17%, 17.1%, I think, of all students miss 10% or more of school. So in our calendar, that'd be 16 days. That's 3 weeks of education in a year to be chronically absent.
And I was thinking, he said that this last year it was almost up to 25% for some reason, didn't he?
I
Because
know.
you were gonna look and you were like, I don't think ours is that much. But, the statewide, we have the most kids he asked how, there's 4 different levels. What do you think your kids are at academically? Like, are they at a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4? And most people did pick a 1, and that, unfortunately for the state of Kansas, it's where most of our kids are, is their learning is a 1. So that was something that moved our kids into at least the level 2. Help students develop self-regulation, initiatives, goal setting, self-efficacy, and perseverance skills, help them develop a robust IPS in middle and high school, and raise our standards. Expect more of our kids, because sometimes they're giving us exactly what we expect of them, and that we need to do that, to increase the expectations and hold them to a higher standard. Don't say, oh yeah, since everybody's doing poorly, well, if the teacher's doing a good job, they shouldn't be doing all of them doing poorly, but don't dumb it down. Challenge kids, try to increase. And then one of the ones I went to was about recruiting school board members. And so I just thought it was interesting that the simple ways they said to recruit new board members if you're going to be leaving. Share your why and the reasons you chose to serve others. Speak positively about your experience as a board member often. Don't always have people who say negative things. Oh, Lord, yeah, you couldn't be able to do this again. Make current Board of Education information accessible and timely to community members, which is kind of what we're talking about. And then also partner with other board members or district representatives to have a Board of Education candidate information session to kind of let people know. And so I just thought those were, I don't know, were some interesting ones that I thought that I went to.
The president from Greensburg, he did a session on being a good leader and stuff, and he said one of your greatest tasks as a board member is to recruit new board members. That's one of the things that as a board member you should try to do is recruit others. So, as on most boards that you're on, you find your replacement so you can get off. It was interesting, someone said that Kansas is level 1, 2, and 3, and 4 in other states. Our level 1 may be a level 3 in another state, or, you know, it's once again, it's with the numbers, everybody can move numbers and stuff as they want. I really hope that we're not lowering the bar for graduation so that we can raise our graduation rate to 95%, because I feel like that may be how we're achieving our excellence there, but I think we need to still continue to demand excellence. Do you have anything?
Nope. I shared my 3 years back, full slides.
Okay. Moving on. Community access policy. Scott has put some stuff together here on some clarifications. We discussed this and discussed it. And we need to make sure that we stick a nail in the coffin for good this time and get it all on paper. So,
These are basically concerns that, or questions that have been brought to us. So it was timely, we're in basketball season, and here we are having a board meeting. So the first sentence is just so everybody understands. We allow access to the gym and the locker rooms, but not the weight room because of the liability. We all agreed that the $50 a year was good. And now with our new key card system, we can actually put an expiration date on it. So in a year, their card won't function anymore. So that'll save a lot of that. You know, is it a school year? Is it the date that you purchased the card or whatever else? One of the questions that I would like clarification on, and then we'll put it in a facility use policy, is in a family, do they just need one card? Then anybody in that family can use it, adults, to take their children. That was a parent-specific question to us. If dad comes in and gets a membership card, does mom get to use it?
I have that specific question as well, because it's time for us to get a new card, and do Courtney and I need 2 cards? That seems awfully,
You use the one now?
yeah,
Okay.
it seems silly to.
I think just one.
One card per family.
Parents are together.
Okay. Where are we with allowing parents to take other kids as long as an adult is present? Never really went there. But if you want to take the best friend,
Right.
can an adult take kids other than themselves? Again, we got rid of the weight room liability issue. So this is the gymnasium only. Parents must be present. A parent.
And I think that there's something to be said there, you know, if I wanna take my kid down to shoot, and she wants to take the best friend. We don't have access to the weight room, we're removing that, and that's the biggest liability piece. If they roll an ankle, I mean, that's just something that happens when you play basketball.
I don't personally have a problem with them taking other kids. I mean, it used to be they could do that, there was never a problem, but I know now everyone wants to sue everybody for something, and if they roll their ankle and would try to sue the school because the floor was too slick or too
No.
dull or
Yeah.
too shiny or too whatever, but a lot of times you're gonna want more than one kid with you, because if you're gonna go
Yes.
shoot around basketball, you might have 5 kids with you. I personally don't have an issue with that.
Don't they sign a form when they get their card?
Just the card holder,
Just the card.
Right.
but not for it to take another person's
But they're
kids.
assuming the responsibility for the students that they take when they sign that form, right?
For them, for them, not for another kid.
Not for other kids.
Can that be changed to responsible for whoever you took, you know, whoever you bring your child and your guest?
I mean, it's probably not gonna hold a lot of weight, but
Right.
nothing
Just what I was gonna say.
is gonna hold a lot of weight, but I
Yeah, I
think
think we
it's
have to,
worthwhile.
we have to look at whether we're gonna get
I mean, common sense is.
nitpicky on everything, or
As an
whether.
adult, if you take a kid to the gym, I'm responsible for
No
that.
different if you take the kid to the park.
Right, whether it's your kid or somebody
Right.
else's kid, if you're taking them there, you're responsible.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, I have been the unpopular parent because my child has said, hey mom, I'm gonna go to the gym and shoot with so-and-so at 2 o'clock today, and I've had to say, no, you're not. No, you're not, because it's unclear whether that's allowed or not, and no, you can't go, and man, that sucks. It's not a fun conversation to have. Is it fair? No, I don't think so. If I wasn't on the school board, I would probably have said, go for it.
I don't know that the liability is any more than kids playing flag football on our practice field and roll an ankle.
I don't think so.
Unsupervised, or trip on the track and break their nose, or, you know, climb the goalpost and fall off.
Yeah, because we can't shut down the football field and put a cover over it so no one can go there to get hurt. We have no,
And we want them to be using the facilities and staying active. I mean,
We just don't want parents
we don't want people manipulating the system.
to bring more than they can manage.
Right.
Well, what we don't want, and why we shut this down, is because cards were being given to kids.
Right.
And the only way we're gonna monitor that is if somebody looks at a camera,
Well,
or there's an incident that forces us to look.
or somebody's gonna say something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as long as an adult's present, and if the adults hopefully are responsible and will make sure all the kids are out of the gym when they leave, then,
But isn't that also part of making people pay for it? I mean, the theory there is if you have to pay for it, you are going to be more responsible.
yes, and we have it if you
And
violate.
you lose it.
Yeah, if you violate, you lose it. That's
Yeah.
correct. Okay, so are we okay with parents taking other kids around the room? Okay, okay.
Yes.
There is a men's basketball that I guess traditionally has always played basketball in our gym. Nobody's recruited me, not quite sure why. Maybe the inability to run. So for that, does every basketball player need a card? Does one person have a card? You see, opening up facilities to the public comes with a variety of details.
I felt like minors was what we were trying to keep from being down there. I don't feel that the men's basketball team was an issue or has been an issue, but.
But somebody's gonna have to
Buy the
pony
card.
up $50
One
for their
percent, but
card.
with a lot of those guys who play, one of them is gonna have a card anyway, in theory. I mean, they've got, it's, we say old men, but it's not all old men. Some of them have children and do take them to the gym too.
Several of them are your staff members, they're gonna have
Right,
their
they're
own
gonna
card.
have cards, so.
I like your point, John, it's the minors that we're mostly concerned with.
Trying to keep from,
So the other question I had, just do we ask the basketball players or the team to do a facilities use form so that it is only for them on the nights that they want to play?
are they on a regular night? Does he?
I think they are.
Play Wednesday.
No different than any other entity saying, can I use the commons for this? Okay. Can I use the stage for
Right.
that? Okay.
But then when, are we shutting down the facility on Wednesday nights so only they can use it, or are we just saying they have the right to go in and use it? Anybody else can too. Because that's the way it's
Then they wouldn't need
always
to fill
been.
out a facilities
Right.
use.
Well,
if
but
they
I mean,
want a
anybody with a
private
card
card.
can go
If they wanna use it privately, they could technically fill out a facilities use request. Why not?
And then nobody but them could use it.
Because then when
They
someone else
could.
goes in there and uses it, then they're gonna come complain to you or I, and then I'll have to deal with it. and I
Well,
don't
but I'm
want it.
saying, you're shaking your head like they can't, you mean it's not a good idea.
Right,
I'm
I think
saying
just
that
let
they
them use
could.
it.
yeah.
Like they've always been using it.
Okay. So not a deal.
No, sometimes they get full court and sometimes they get half court, it just depends on the night.
It's a
We have
big deal.
students who are 18 years old, do they get to get a card, or is this 21 and older, 25 and older? What are we gonna call an adult? Because anybody with a card can take kids.
I don't think we should have.
We'll take their money.
But if they're 18 and they go in with other kids, then that's, if they're still.
That was a question I had earlier on, was whether we would allow our seniors the responsibility to buy a card or not, because some of them are 18 or older. Or
And
whether
could
we want it to-
potentially take a civil.
Yes, or whether we want it to be
Or which
25. And if, I think we've gotta stay with 21 or 25, because if we allow it to 18, then they have a card, then they can take whoever they want, because we just sit here, you can take anyone with you, and
Yes.
we open whole can of worms we're trying to close.
But then what about our 19 and 20-year-olds who have graduated, maybe moved back home, and now they can't get a card because
Can't their parents get a card?
what if their parents don't?
They can pay for the card, it's in their parents' name.
I mean, I have a 20-year-old employee who would probably like to have a card. He doesn't have family here.
Anyone better?
Out of,
school graduate.
out of high school, yeah. High school graduate.
They didn't graduate.
You get a lot of perks while you're in school, when you graduate, it's your life. Welcome to opening
No longer
service.
enrolled in USD 298 or 99 or. No. Maybe it was,
I'm a little bit younger, 21, and I kinda like this. Oh, we just threw out,
High school graduate?
yeah. There's lots of things change when you graduate. That might be a little bit.
And you said, what if they don't graduate, so, okay, high school graduate, or then you could kick in the over.
Or what?
It'll encourage them to graduate.
What if
So
somebody,
if they're a graduate, they can get it at 18, but if they didn't graduate, they have to wait till they're 21.
Well, gee, guys.
they're not smart enough to graduate, so I'm probably going 95%.
You know, we're gonna
Some
be here till
benefit to graduate,
April.
doesn't there?
This is something that resurfaces at least once a year,
Yes,
sometimes twice.
yes.
I would say, I mean, going with the graduate piece, just no longer enrolled in a high school program.
And the $50, we're hoping that will deter.
Except for a GED. I know where you're going.
Not enrolled in a high school, so a 16-year-old dropout can get a card, because they're not enrolled in high school.
Of course, that or,
I'd say a high
Say
school
what?
graduate
High school graduate or
equivalent.
equivalent.
Or equivalent. There you go. There.
good job, David, thank you, I just said it half an hour ago.
I doubt we're gonna have that many kids coming in
I
asking
think-
for cards.
I think what we're getting at is the age needs to be 18.
Yes.
Because if they graduate at 17 or 16, that doesn't count. So 18 and high school graduate were equivalent.
But what he's saying
You were
is
putting
we
an
have.
educational requirement on a gym access.
How
That
else
would be
do you
like
say,
Post
John?
Rock Fitness saying, you can join my gym if you have an associate's degree or higher.
How else do, aside from saying no longer enrolled in school?
Mine would say 19,
You say 19 and then they would be out of all.
they should be in high school.
But 19 doesn't get you anything, 18 you can vote, 21 you can drink.
19 gets you a
25.
gym membership. You get a
Let's
card.
just go with 19.
19, let's move on to the next question.
I graduated at 17, so then I would have a year out of high school, I couldn't went to the gym. Without my parents taking me.
See, but I was 19 when I graduated, so.
That was your problem.
What's the word?
19.
19? Okay.
For now.
There were questions about lights on, and Our custodian, we have an evening custodian, should always pick that up since it closes at 10 and they're usually there till 11ish. So we can pick that up during the week. We cannot do anything about it on the weekends. Just need to be aware. Somebody goes in at 8 o'clock Saturday morning for some morning ball, leaves the lights on, they'll probably be on all weekend.
Is there such thing as like a 15-30 minute timer, you know, the buzzer goes off 5 minutes before they go off, nobody resets the buzzer, they're gonna go off. If somebody resets the
I
buzzer.
can just see like,
They stay on for another.
lights off.
Oh, I could have.
Middle of the basketball game. Oh, they forgot to turn it on.
Motion sensor
I'm just saying,
Yeah, if there was an EPM for lights, you know, you
Yeah,
could probably
they
do
have
something.
those
Those
little
little
things.
light switches that are motion
motion
sensors.
sensor.
I'm not sure they would work in that area.
They're only in that, wherever you have the sensor.
Tomorrow.
If you're at the far end.
Maybe ask them what they
Okay.
could do.
The other thing, and one of the issues we were having was door propped open. It's been an issue. That will just have to be, if somebody reports it, then we'll try to see who propped it open. We have a lot better camera system now, and we've installed many more cameras.
We won't try, we will.
Exactly.
We will figure out who you are.
Those cards, you won't believe, these little plastic dumb things are now up to about $7 a piece. So out of that 50, 7 of it goes to their card. Will there be a fee for a lost card?
Yes, probably.
Or replace, I lost my card, need another one.
You have to buy another one.
Cost of the card?
I think so.
You lost your car keys, you better buy some more.
That's right.
I'm just,
Make
Get her in writing.
Sucker.
so we'll replace the card for the cost of the card. Okay. See, that's easy.
You can restart your yearly subscription then too. Does that answer all your questions on this?
Till the next time we go. We haven't had a session like this in a long time. Thank you for your report, Nikki. And, no,
Fine by me.
Okay, in order to put this all to bed, before we go to bed, we need a motion on this community access policy to approve adding everything that we have just discussed.
I so move.
Okay?
I'll second.
Motion by Gina, seconded by Bree, that USD 298 Board of Education adopt changes and additions to community access clarification for our policy. Any other discussion? All in favor? 6 up. Ooh, admin reports.
You go first. So junior high basketball has started. They had their first game last Thursday. We have 20 boys out, 6 through 12, or 6 through 8, and 23 6 through 8 girls. So good numbers again, fills the bus. Trying to get as many C-team games as we can, as we know many of the teams in our league don't have the numbers, and so that's kind of tough at times on nights. Some kids just don't get a lot of playing time, so probably try to add some junior high games for some of those guys so they get some playing time. Mrs. Brenneman did a wonderful job finding 2 authors that came, and they did a Zoom. The one was the person who wrote Pete the Cat. So they did that for pre-K through 2nd grade. Each kid got their own book that was autographed by the author. They sent it through Scholastic. Very, very cool. It was very interactive. They sang and danced all through. I was very questionable, to be honest with you, when they said it was through Zoom, but they set a huge screen up in the gym, and they had the camera and all the kids sitting in front of it, and just very, very awesome. The kids loved it. And then the next week we did one for 3rd through 8th grade, and we brought the junior high kids over to the elementary school, and it was the author from I Survived, and I actually got to watch all of that one, and she did a wonderful job, came from New York City, she was at the Scholastic company, so she walked them through the Scholastic offices, and she wrote all the I Survived books, and every kid got a I Survived book that was autographed. I think the kids enjoyed it. She had a lot of great information and a lot of good questions from the kids, so thank you to Mrs. Brenneman for putting that together, because it was very well received by our kids. Both my kids talked about it and said very good things about it, so I think it was really good. Mrs. Crenshaw has been taking kids to career fairs and college visits. So we took juniors and seniors to the Russell Career Fair. We took sophomores to Barton the other day. Working on taking, I think kids are going to Cloud, or sophomores went to Cloud, and then we took some juniors to Barton. We have an NCK getting ready to go, 8th graders are getting ready to go to NCK. So just trying to give kids as much exposure as we possibly can each year. So kind of the goal is taking them to a certain grade to like a VOTEC, and a certain grade to like community college, certain grades to, your 4-year college. So just getting as much exposure as we possibly can. We also had on Thursday a STEM, it's called STEM Fire, and we had 7 different speakers come and talk to our kids 6 through 12 about different STEM careers. Some of them were local speakers, but we had like a nuclear engineer come and talk from K-State. I think that was pretty well received from our kids. Just gave them some exposure to some opportunities outside of, what they see in just little Lincoln. So that was good. Let's see what else I got. Mrs. Webke has signed up for the K-State Science Camp that she put on last year. She had a 3-week STEM camp in the summer. She's going to go through the training again. It costs us $100, and we get thousands of dollars worth of equipment. So that'll be an opportunity for kids again to take this coming summer. Probably will be June, first 3 weeks like we did last year. So great opportunity for her, and I appreciate that she puts all that time in. We had the musical this weekend, which was called High School Musical, on Saturday and Sunday. Pretty good crowd on Saturday night, medium-sized crowd on Sunday. Didn't have a ton of kids, so that usually impacts the crowd, but it was really good. The kids worked really hard, and I think Mr. Riggs kind of got some jitters out. Even talked about maybe doing a spring concert, or a spring play, so we'll see how that goes. But good for him and all the work that he put in. Parent-teacher conferences, we wrapped those up. We only had 4 parents at the elementary school not show up, so pretty impressive numbers. So 97% of our parents at the elementary school showed up. Usually pretty good numbers down there. High school, 56%, but that's pretty typical usually. So as they get, I think Power School, as they get older, things change. They just kind of depend on Power School more than anything. Let's see what I forget. Mrs. Hilligeist. We have too many of the Hilligeist. Mrs. Hilligeist, Laura, in the library. She started I told you she started the board game. That's been really well received, and some kids have asked about esports. So she did a training the other night after school about potentially bringing esports. So I'm still gathering information on that, but have some kids interested in it. I kind of struggle with playing video games at school, but there is actually a demand for it, and very competitive in nature in a lot of high schools around the country. So I think that's all I got. Your turn.
You know what I love? I don't care what anybody says. We do a lot of good things here. All you have to do is listen to everything that goes on for our kids. And by God, for a 1A school, I don't hear anybody else doing that kind of stuff. Our staff kills it when they're looking for opportunities for kids. I'm proud. For me, so ESP, you remember that energy efficiency company came. They've done their audits. I'm meeting with them at 2 o'clock tomorrow to go over their findings, and then probably be presenting something to you at the December board meeting. It'll probably be them. DCS, if you remember, was more of our facilities analysis company. So the mechanical engineers came. They went through both buildings head to toe, looked at all of our mechanical systems. Last week, an architect came and she and I toured every building, every classroom, every nook and corner. They will both assemble their reports and do a packet for you. Then DCS, I don't know if they can pull it off by December. They're going to try. There was a big gap between the mechanical engineers and the architect, and I finally called them and I'm like, hello? So it was like 2 days later, the architect was here. When they get that done, they're going to present to you our challenges, and their process is this. The board picks what challenges they think need to be addressed in the most immediate fashion, kind of just rank them. Then they will assemble bids for those projects for you to see where we are. That should help us tremendously in budget planning of our capital outlay, of our wind farm money, and give us an idea where we want to go. So that will be exciting. I had several emails back and forth with the governor's office today. Governor's office. Governor Kelly is going to come in January and visit our tech center. She wanted to come December 21st, and I got right back and said, we don't have school, but you can certainly see the facility. And they said, no, she wants to interact with kids. So I'll let you know the date. I'm waiting. Our January, we're here just about every day of the month. And I said, you just tell us a day and a time, we'll make it work. We might try, depending on the time, to have that as kind of our open house. It'll be chaotic with kids, so I don't know if that's the best time for the community. She wants to see kids working. Politics aside, Governor Kelly has been outstanding for education, and give her all credit for that, because she has made sure that we are fully funded every year she's been in office. So I am a fan, and I can't wait till she comes and sees that little districts make big impacts. So her funding helps us with that. Had a company come out and look at windows and found out some interesting stuff. We're still waiting on results of that. An example would be the library windows that I was told that couldn't be fixed. Well, this guy was like, they can be fixed. Knee wall, $100,000 concrete wall, these are some of the best windows manufactured that you have here. These are the windows they use in high rises to keep people from falling out of buildings. So we're very fascinated by this company. And they surveyed all the windows. They agreed that those south-facing ones were bad, but they said they're all bad. All your windows are crap. So they're going to put together some ideas of what they could do. Funny thing, and this is hilarious, and I'll just share it because you shared it with me, where Nikki and them were looking at the windows, and the guy was like, at the library, he's like, 2 of these are backwards. We're like, what? Well, they're installed the wrong way. The interiors to the exteriors to the interior. We're like, well, who would have thought?
Did you notice them?
Yeah, I did now.
Yeah. After you pointed them out, I'm like, oh yeah, they are.
They're different colors.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, but they said they are
I never noticed.
outstanding.
I don't know how many times I walked up and never saw it, but I do now.
They are good quality windows. They're going to give us a bid for the entire building, and we'll see where we are, what we can do. What's that?
We were used to bottom windows.
Exactly. And they can fix those clips. They're just like, no big deal. But we need to get in a French drain. We need to get in some grade work in there and get that water away from the building. He suggested a French drain right along the window, then angle it down and get us a pitch to go. We probably ought to shoot it clear past south of the teacher parking lot, or we're just going to, wherever we pop it up, it's going to be a mess if we don't get it down to that ditch. So anyway, that was great news on the windows. The wrestling mats have become a topic of conversation, and I have had the best meetings with a kid named Colton, right, and Darren. And Darren's in charge of I call him kids, he's probably, I don't know, 30-something, but anyway, had a great sit-down conversation with Colton, had a super phone call conversation with Darren today. And here's what I've agreed to do with them. The lifespan of a wrestling mat is about 20 years. Well, 10 years ago, the club donated $4,200 to resurface the mats. There was some concern about they invested in these mats, the lifespan wasn't. Then, the conversation was, well, there are mats, you buy tires for my car, I'll sell a car, but It wasn't contentious, it was just kind of fun and laughing at a few things and whatever else. So I'm going to, out of the sale of the wrestling match, I'm going to give the club $2,000, and they feel that that will make them whole. It was a 20-year lifespan. They paid the $4,000, got 50% of the life. We're just going to give them $2,000 to the club. Darren is also going to come over and look at the equipment that we have. And if the club can utilize that, we have no need for that hanging in our closet. So if the club can utilize that, we'll put together a list of property to dispose of as a donation to the wrestling club. And I told Colton and Darren both, there is no animosity between the school and wrestling. There was not enough people to have a program. We support the club, we support kids, and we support wrestling. And if they come back at some point in time and say, here's a roster of 15 kids, what do you think? I said, the board has already said that would be a consideration. So they asked for that, they asked for the money, I offered the equipment, but I did tell them, I'm going to ask for one more thing, and that is that there is no contention between us. That your message to your organization is, everything is good, and everything is fine, and we're doing everything we can for kids, both entities. And we put an end to the, friction, you know? Yeah, the undercurrent of friction. And he was all on board for that. I don't know him, I don't know if I've ever even met him, because that was just a phone call, but that's what I asked of him, that we believe in what they're doing. So, that was a good conversation. I just wanted to fill you in on that, because I felt really good about those 2 meetings about wrestling. That's all I got.
Okay. All right, executive session for personnel. Okay. 10 minutes.
I'll move, we go into executive session for 10 minutes.
Okay.
I'll second.
I'll just say make it 15.
Okay. Okay, we'll make it 15. I have 10:03, so, well, by the time we get there, it'll be 10:03. Motion by Jason, seconded by Bree, that USD 298 Board of Education going to executive session at 10:03 p.m. for 15 minutes with the superintendent for the purpose of discussing personnel matters for non-elected personnel, and that the Board of Education return to open meeting at 10:18 in the Board of Education conference room. The executive session is required to protect the privacy of non-elected personnel exempt under COMA. All in favor? Opposed?